Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Autoholics. Chris is here once again, and Jess is here, and we even have cats already. Loki and Luna are both being very treat-focused at the moment. I'm being harangued already. Sorry, this is going to...
We can't make it 5 minutes in without one of them being like, come on,
This is going to take
give me them treats.
a moment. Come on. Yeah, and you're going to aggressively demand one. If you want more, you're going to have to come and show your face.
Bribery.
Actually, if I put that on there, they're just going to steal them. So, we are back once again. We didn't do one last month, but we are just about on average, one a month so far. We're still just scraping into our averages at the moment. So, hello to everybody in the chat currently. I've noticed that Welby is in. I worked with Welby when I first moved down to Reading in 2007. And we worked together for, what, 4 months? Something like that? And then you moved on to a much, much better job. Who else have we got? John is in from 7 Spot. Hobbins Hot Rods. Jason's in. Hello, Jason. Sil, thank you once again for helping us fix our problems. David's in. Aid's in. Heather is in as well. Yeah, we've got quite a good crowd in already, which is nice.
Forgot Tina.
Tina?
Heather and Tina. If we're
Oh, Tina's there as well. Sorry, I didn't actually read.
He's like,
anybody
yeah.
had read. I literally read down.
As if we ever read chat.
I just read the names. Like that's the important bit, right? So yes, we are back once again for the Renegade Master.
I don't know, I felt like a bit of a renegade when I woke up this morning.
You had a fair...
That's my monitor case, I think.
No, that's an
Isn't it?
additional one. But if you'd like it, I have very little need for it.
No, I think it's actually probably too big for my... Sorry, months and months and months ago I lost the carry case for my monitor. And I just saw something over there that looks like it.
That does coincide with when I got that monitor case. Of course, this is not interesting for anybody, but it does,
yeah, just
does
one
tie
of those
up
moments
a
of,
number of questions that I have, and apparently you've had. So, success.
Go us.
So yes, we've had a little bit of a weird arrangement this weekend. Chris was in London for a conference and is now around this weekend, but we actually came down during the week and did stuff for a change.
I took the week off and I was here Wednesday and Thursday spannering on the not so kit car.
Yes,
and actually the last couple of days I've been just down the road at a LAN party, which is why I don't have my PC with me for once.
Indeed,
it's just currently set up on a desk at the village hall.
Single manning this with the computer, which is going to make the challenge of finding a £5,000 car on some platform a little bit more tricky for you, but I can at least find the links and put them up through this, which is going to be fine. It is possible that my mic is quite quiet. We did find this when we were filming in the middle of the week, and we had to just throw settings around the place in order to fix things.
Yeah, the audio on the camera is kind of funky.
Yeah,
at the minute. We can't quite work out how.
I swapped cameras. I had a Blackmagic Ursa Mini. And now I have a Mini Pro, and apparently their inboard amps are very, very different from one another.
Audio's crackling.
Crackling quite badly. Okay, on whom? When which one of us is talking? Is it when I am talking, or
when I am talking?
There we go. Hopefully our
sorry, I'm very sleep deprived right now.
Should be getting back to us any minute.
Yeah.
But yes, we've.
Brain's running at about 50% power today.
Yeah.
I may be somewhat short on sleep and somewhat not short on alcohol in my bloodstream. Yeah.
Yeah, we had, having done please don't stand on that, Binks. You can have a treat, just not on the laptop. Go on. No. Well, you fed Luna. Well done. And you're not going to be, this is going to be mental. So yeah.
That was apparently both of us.
Yep, apparently Binks. Oh,
excellent. Okay.
Fair enough. Well, Binks just typed into the chat, so well done. Yeah,
most intelligent thing we've said all day.
Yes, yeah, the smartest thing that's been posted in a while. So my week is just completely detached at this point because we've done 2 days spannering, then had a day off, and then got the stream today, and we haven't just had to run in from outside to get everything sorted.
If I remember right, you tend to base your sense of time, like, is it the week, is it the weekend, and everything. You're doing that based on when I'm, at least when I'm around, you're doing it based on when I'm here, because I'm only ever here on weekends. So like your
pretty much
sense of
on
time.
camera, really. He did a big sniff as well. Good Lord.
I am not letting you boop me with that nose again.
Yeah, sit there.
Yeah.
So yes, it's all been a bit demonetized for indecent video. Yeah, it's all been a bit of a disjointed week for the most part. We delved into a big problem with the roof, which a number of people have pointed out it wasn't going to work particularly well with that foam roof at the front end of the car. And sure enough, after 3 years, it eventually failed enough, and we started digging into it, and it was a horror show.
We're going to have a lot of very, very smug people in the comments saying, "Told you shouldn't do that."
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, I thought if we could get it sealed enough with resin, it would be fine. It was not fine. Mostly because I didn't keep pouring more and more resin onto it to just fill it up, because then it would just be a solid mass of resin. So
I couldn't tell like an episode number to point people back to, but yeah, if you go back and watch that episode, I mean, you've got you have the relevant machine.
I could probably find that.
But yeah, so back at the time, like our whole thing on
in fact,
the way we built
I could put it on the screen behind us. Sorry, carry on.
The way we actually constructed this thing, so we've got a metal we've got a metal surround that we built for the windscreen, and that's basically little pieces of flat bar that we. I can't remember. Did we like bend them into shape or something? I'll get to it.
I fit them up to the screen, made the surround. Then we built the A pillars for the cage. Then we built Then we attached the screen into the A pillars, and then built the bodywork around that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, as I'd already done the scoop at the back, above the windscreen just kind of fell out of thought.
Yeah, so because we're using a smart car windscreen, it's quite radius, like it sweeps around a fair bit, and we've leaned it back quite far, so that arc that the windscreen takes going
There's
around,
about 3/4 of an inch drop edge to edge, which is about as best as I could find.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I believe we have made a decision on Kitfest. The car is not going.
The car is not going because we tore into an enormous amount of the paint. Well, I tore into a bunch of it in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
then
it just
Chris
looks like
came
dog
over
shit,
and we
basically.
just ripped through it even more. So it was pretty brutal. And now we've completely scalped the front of it. It's even worse. But we have a solid plan for what we're going to do.
So Aid is going to Kitfest, if I remember right.
Yes.
Have I just committed you to something that wasn't?
No,
actually
I'm going to be there
okay.
Saturday and Sunday. Using there we go. It is in fact episode 127.
Beautiful. So yeah, you're going to be at Kitfest for at least one of the 2 days. I won't be.
I'm going to put this up on the extended screen.
Slightly sad because I would like to go, but I have had almost no weekends at home between being here working on the car, between work events and LAN parties. There's been a very, very unusual number of LAN parties the early part of this year. So I haven't been home.
That was the wrong
phone. Well, you know, it's a similar
crime.
kind of crime anyway.
Yep.
So yeah, I've just not been home in absolutely ages. So I need to actually take a weekend back at home and, you know, acknowledge that I have a family, I suppose.
How dare you?
Yeah, madness. So yeah, Aid's going to be up at Kitfest on his own, but yeah, I think can't even get a whole sentence out without stuttering, man.
The cameras will be there. I'll be going around filming all sorts of stuff.
And I think your plan was to bring up, I'm not sure if you meant like an actual physical photo book.
I'm going to try.
You were talking at least about something vaguely like that.
We had one from when we did the other events that Yolanda put together, which I think is in the events box.
Yeah, that was good.
So I can take that along with, which will
People
work.
love that.
Okay, that's not the one. That's not the one. Building the front splitter.
It's possible that you're taking this request a little too far.
I was just going to put it up in the meantime whilst discussing other things.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is
about 7 years, John. We've been building it for about 7 years now. In fact, actually, we had the horrible realization while I was down wrenching on it the other day. Because, of course, normally we're working on it on weekends, right? So this sort of like thought process won't have been catalyzed. But we're working on it on a weekday, and we're working on it like obviously earlier in the day, but through kicking out time at school, right? So you've got school kids walking past the driveway, and every so often one of them will look in and go, "What in the fuck is that thing?" down there as they look up the driveway and see the car.
That will get us demonetized.
Yeah, fair enough. But like. I realised that the kids who were in year 7, they were just starting at secondary school and poking their noses in and looking when we started the project. Those kids will have gone all of the way through secondary school and done their A-levels and will now be in university.
Yep.
Right? They could have walked past this driveway every single day on their way to or from school and seen that car, and it would not have gone from started to finish in the whole time they were in secondary.
Nope.
And that was a miserable thought.
Yes. No, I can't easily lay my hands on. Admittedly, I changed the way I was doing the thumbnails, and I don't know what I'm looking at anymore.
Fear.
Engine cover
There's a lot of
frame,
them. Like, there's just a lot of episodes to scroll through to try and find it.
Yeah, there really is.
And like, because we have to do the sort of YouTube-y, like, they're not clickbaity titles, but they're not. In most cases, they're not like very plain English descriptions of what we've done. So we can't just like search the channel titles for "we make the forehead" or whatever we were calling it at the time, the front part of the roof.
That is apparently not finding it, which. Wow, we started.
It was a while ago, right? It was like
we started doing the mop-up list on episode 115.
Yeah, I know.
Still going.
Yep.
I'm trying to look in the
mostly
thumbnails
like all
to see other things where I can see that.
The mop-up list taken forever is one of those, like, we have a lot of seemingly fairly small things to do, but somehow all of them take like 2 days.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter how small and piddly a job is, it just takes a day or two, or it takes basically a whole visit.
So John's just saying, will you be putting it through the IVA?
Yes.
That is currently the problem at the moment, is basically making sure it conforms to all the IVA stuff. So the one we just filmed, which will be out in about 4 episodes' time, is dealing with some sharp edges on the doors on the side. Obviously, we have to fix the roof now because Well,
you say have to. That's not for the IVA.
We probably don't actually have to, other than it would need painting, and it's wobbly and looks horribly warped.
Oh, it looks like ash, yeah. But
other than that, it would be fine. The inside of the roof needs doing, because that is full of bits of weld that went through holes that we burned through. Yes, attempting to. Yeah, correct, Jason.
Unfortunately, me knowing people on the inside is not going to help us. Yeah.
No, I was talking to somebody about where we're going to take it to get IVA'd.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Bristol Centre has never passed a kit car. Never. At any point. Ever.
Okay, so we're not going there.
So now it becomes a bit of a crapshoot on which one we go to. However, the one at Dartford, being close to Caterham, is apparently more friendly.
Who'd have thunk?
So we're going to have to go through all of the kit car forums and trawl and find out where people have taken them.
Well, wouldn't it be handy if you were going to an event full of people?
I know,
with
right?
kit cars?
It's on my list of things to do, and obviously John's in the 7th spot. So yeah. It's based on a...
I say very, very loosely.
Very, very loosely, it's based on that book. As best we can tell, that's what it started being built as, because we bought the chassis from eBay as a partial... It had been welded up, the floor had been welded in, and it had panels ready to pop rivet on, but that was it.
I had a bunch of panels already riveted on, we cut them off.
No, they were bonded.
And riveted. I drilled out a lot of rivets.
Oh, yeah, no, the rear... Yeah, sorry, the firewall one was... Yeah, that one was... It was the side ones that went on,
But it was basically a Haynes Roadster, which is like one of the many sort of low-costy sort of 7 clones.
Okay, so Leighton Buzzard is apparently good as well. Jason's 2 minutes from there, so yes, I'll take that moral support every day of the week. But yes, I saw your video with Ron Champion. I started watching it, then got pulled onto something else, so it's in my watch later, which I think at the moment has about 1,200 videos in, which is horrendous.
Yeah.
I need to start going through, because I'm sure there's stuff I've watched in it, but Ron would be... I do kind of wonder what Ron would think of what we'd made.
Nothing good, I don't
from his starter.
No, because that, right, that little Caterham-inspired... Caterham-based, whatever you want to call it, sports car, is basically the platonic ideal of car.
Yeah.
There is nothing in there that you can take away and still have a car.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that you need to add to it. It is genuinely, in my opinion, just about perfect.
Yes.
Everything we've done is worse. And I don't just mean worse executed.
We've made it heavier.
We've made it bigger, we've made it heavier, we've put the engine in the back, so we've messed with the weight distribution.
Yep.
We've built our own suspension, so we would have absolutely mangled its handling.
Yep.
We've, now, not that it's particularly slippery, but it's at least not a very big frontal area. There's not much of it punching through the air, and we've added more of that.
Yes, pretty much. We have made vents through the arches, so we've solved minor problems. But so it's mid-engine. It's the TT Mark 1 TT transaxle in the back. And yeah, basically we got carried away. Oh, I got carried away. You had very little say in it, unfortunately.
So, in fairness, it being mid-engine is kind of my fault.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of your fault.
Yeah, pretty much. But basically, we bought that chassis pretty much sight unseen. It was on eBay. I looked at it and went, "Ha! Wouldn't it be wacky if we bought that?" And then ignored the problem for 5 days. And then on the day that the auction was ending, the price was still 250 quid. So we drove for 4 hours with a 3-foot by 5-foot trailer on the back. No, it was a 4x6 trailer on the back.
Yeah,
it was Norfolk way.
Yeah.
All the way up, something like that. Drove all the way up there, strapped it onto the top of this trailer with 3 or 4 boxes of cars.
Just random parts.
Of parts from random cars.
Yeah.
Like there was...
We went through. We tried to figure out what they were.
We went through as much as we could. There was
there were a couple of bits that made sense. It was like an old Ford.
There was an English axle.
Yeah, sorry, an
end,
English axle diff.
There was no housing, so it was just the diff and the half shaft and the half shafts.
Yeah.
That was it. No housing for them to live in. There was a Metro front arm.
There was like all sorts of assorted little
and a mini caliper, but there was only one of each. So it was a complete mess of parts, which I still have a bunch of. I need to just take them to an auto jumble or weigh them in, because I've got so many other parts that I should get rid of. I could do a pretty good auto jumble just with the shed.
Yeah.
So bodywork is all steel. So during lockdown, I basically built a 10mm steel frame and just kind of felt my way through what seemed good.
If I go and pop some pictures in Discord, because I've got an album on my phone with basically the whole build history of the car photographed. If I grab ones that are relevant to these questions, I'll pop them in the Discord. I'll be quiet for a minute.
I'll grab them up.
Yeah.
Jason's building his from carbon.
Oh.
He's going diametrically opposed to us in the weight, but
that's
still creating problems for himself.
That's if ours is half-assed, that's very whole-assed.
Yes. But yeah, so that was kind of how that trying. Yes, yeah, we're trying to build ours, and yeah, basically we sort of sat down and went, that would be cool, that would be interesting. Oh, we could do this, and it all got very, very carried away very rapidly.
Yeah, the big ones. So Aid was fairly insistent it had to have a windscreen. You didn't want to be like picking flies out of his teeth.
I didn't want a Diddy windscreen because I'll still get it in the teeth. I didn't want no windscreen for the same reason, which pretty much leaves either an enormous tombstone sticking up in front of me on a Caterham, which would look daft, or trying to engineer in a full windscreen. And once you get to a full windscreen, then you really got to put more body on, because you either have to order a specialist windscreen, which is a lot, or you have to try and make something else fit. And we originally started with a Mercedes SLK Gen 1 windscreen, which was in the boot of my car when it got written off as somebody ploughed into the back of it. And then we couldn't find another one of those cheap enough.
Yeah, so we ended up with a smart car windscreen because it was something that we could find.
60 quid.
Yeah.
Yeah, 60 quid, and fit the profile of being as narrow as we possibly could, as tall as we could get away with, so that we could slope it back. But excuse me, we have got this little bit of sort of droop on the corners from the centre section, which a lot of windscreens have, but not quite as much as this one does. It's not the end of the world, but basically the we've got the demister in already. The demister's already plumbed. The windscreen wipers are already in, as is the washer jet. So that's all solved for the most part.
Pictures starting to trickle into Discord now, by the way.
In stream chat, right? Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I can open these in here. So this is the original frame as we bought, and everything in red has been got rid of, and everything in green is still there. Except I think that we worked out that one was still original.
Yeah, I can't remember if red included things that we'd replaced.
And
equivalent.
That I think is also still there. But yeah, basically red is either got rid of or replaced by some means, because we still do have a tunnel for the water lines to go to the front, and the gearbox, the gear shift cables to run through. So there is a bunch of bits and pieces like that, but that's pretty much where that ended up at. Then we threw the engine into the middle and just welded on this 80mm by 80mm box section, which in retrospect is
that was completely daft, like
grossly over the top. The simplest way to have done it, but massively overkill for what we needed.
I think the thing that we forgot when we were doing that is that you're not hanging the engine off the back of the car. Like the car isn't suspended in the middle
while we build it.
Yeah.
But in reality, you're not. And by the time you triangulate,
because the suspension comes up into this structure, so you only have to get the weight of the engine out of there and into the suspension. You don't have to like make this big jib arm to hold the engine up like at length from the thing. And we just kind of didn't think about that.
So yeah, so that was a bunch of the rear end there, and then wrong one. That was not far off where we got to. Actually, it was a little bit more than that pre-lockdown.
Yeah, I
can't find the picture.
No, I know exactly the one that we need for the pre-lockdown. The
shoot that I did in the front garden. But yeah, so that was pretty much where that ended up at. And it was fine, like it was coming along, but at that point we didn't really acknowledge just how much we were going to keep adding on to the front of it and adding on elsewhere. At that proportion, it's still kind of Caterham proportion. We could have got away with just throwing a regular Caterham-esque body on it.
Yeah, that could have had just a regular Caterham nose on it, because we hadn't widened that or anything.
Yeah.
Like the frame, we've shortened the frame. We pulled another frame off the front end of it that I think was the original radiator mount and everything. So like if we put a Caterham nose cone on it, it would have been longer than it needed to be, but like it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, we could have got away with something very, very similar to it.
Actually, we might have had a problem because we'd moved the front axle back. So we'd probably had to relocate the holes.
Yeah, but I mean, Caterham-esque, you know, not so radical to how it is now.
Yeah. So the last picture I sent, where we've got the first round of the floor installed, and we've kind of got the sort of the plan form of the thing.
So this was basically post-lockdown. Because
no, that was post.
Because I built.
Yeah, because you did the frame.
Yep, I built the cage during lockdown. Yeah. I built all of this side floor structure during lockdown.
Yeah, I got the order of operations a bit muddled up because what I'm about to send now.
And then when you were back from lockdown, so September-ish was when we built this front frame with the radiator on and the headlights. But yeah, all of this kind of looping, the first part of the bodywork, the arches down here, and everything across the back, that was all, I think, lockdown as well.
3 more just gone in. So I'd misremembered. I thought this is where we'd got it to before lockdown. I'm not entirely sure how, because I knew full well that you bent up the roll cage while I was away.
That's the
so
full
this
body,
is the part that I thought happened while I was away. I mean, obviously it didn't, because we built... So the delta from the last one to this, rather.
I built a lot of the framework whilst you were away around here. So you came back to most of this having gone, because you were back over with your folks for something. Cause you,
it was like, I was just down visiting. It was like a birthday or something like that.
So we built all of this
Actually, no, I think it was. I think it was Mother's Day. I was down visiting for Mother's Day when the lockdown order landed.
Well, you were visiting your folks because lockdown started the day after Mother's Day. So yes, it was. And then, but this all happened after you were back. But then you'd gone back to your folks again and like bouncing back.
Yeah, because I was going to and fro. Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much where the bodywork design came from. It was all just tubular steel and box section. And I kind of designed it as I saw fit. I just sort of put bits in here and there and sort of shaped it and went, oh no, that doesn't work. This shoulder at the back here was about, I think, 4 inches higher at one point. And then I sat in the seat and looked over the top of it and went, I'll never see anything. So I got rid of that, lowered it down, and then eventually this corner got knocked off. Instead of being square, it's the rounded section.
I do like how the rear end ended up. Oh shit, we've got Aid's workshop and a Sean.
And Sean, hi Aid. I haven't seen you. Wow, this is a confluence of 3 Aids.
I know.
Myself,
I've actually
White Knight and Aid's workshop is back in.
Now that I'm back in Pembrokeshire full time, I'm allowed to dox myself because this obviously isn't like my address isn't PedalBox. So now that I'm back in Pembrokeshire full time, I've been meaning to try and get back in touch with you, Aid. So watch as I continue to fail to do that.
No, because in 2 weeks' time, we are finally doing the fabled engine swap on the SD1.
Oh, no, you say no, that was never planned. I'm only doing this because I've just got my hands on a basically mint engine.
That's not true, because I watched a video recently where you said, I'm going to swap the engine on the SD1.
Did I?
Yes. A long time ago.
So that's gone from like not being the plan to being the plan to not being the plan to
Yes.
being this. Oh God.
Yes.
Okay, I'm swapping it now, but for different reasons than I would
very
have
different
swapped
reasons,
it back then.
yes. So yes.
So I'm just going to grab a couple more progress.
Yeah.
Like.
So yeah, that will be the plan. But we could feasibly, in 2 weeks, arrange to meet up and see Aid on like Saturday evening or something. This is a possibility if you're around.
I'd be well up for that. I haven't seen Aid in person since I worked with him donkeys years ago now. So yeah.
So the workshop-wise, John, it's basically a lot of stuff that we've pieced together over the years. I had my Mark II Golf beforehand, so I had a bunch of tools, and I just kept on adding to it. We bought a welder not long before we started this project, and started kitting out with a few more bits and pieces. I'd already picked up a mill by that point because I wanted one. I've used it for very little milling, a little bit here and there, but very little in total, really. And it's now replaced the drill press. Skills-wise, many years before, we built a fighting robot for Robot Wars.
Which I blew up. Because I'm a Ted.
But you also welded the majority of it together
true,
with Sam as well. And then I started welding on this and kind of went from there. So yeah, skills, as Aid says, is a very generous description. It's acquired techniques is probably a better way of doing it. I mean,
it's almost damning that, like, despite all the years we've put in this thing, I don't think I would actually say that either of us have achieved anything like a level of skill and expertise that I would allow myself to call myself a fabricator.
Yeah.
Because we've just continued bodging and bodging and bodging. And I don't remember, outside of a handful of like little individual moments when we're trying to like, how do we like stop our sheet metal from rippling when we're welding panels and stuff? Other than like a handful of tiny moments, I don't remember us even bothering to look up how to do things properly.
I did. I looked up and went, well, that's definitely beyond my remit, so we're just going to have to kind of figure this out. It also didn't help that the welder that we had was not great.
Yeah.
In retrospect, we should have ditched that thing at the second one, not the fourth one. And that's not fourth bought new. We bought 2 new, and they were repaired at various stages, under warranty and not. And we consistently went, well, it's the biggest, it's the best one we can find with a 13 amp plug. And eventually I gave up on that and bought a Draper that admittedly has a 32 amp commando socket.
It's a 16, I think, but either way,
it's a 32. It's
Jesus.
a 32, yeah. At peak, it draws something like 17 amps, so it can't go on a 16.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
So it's just over. And for what we're doing, we don't need the maximum capability of it, so we can run it on a 16 up to about 60% power. Yeah. And we've never needed anything more than that.
Yeah, because we're not doing like big, heavy,
we're
thick
not
material welds.
Material
exactly.
Together. So it's quite fine. And we've never tripped anything. It's on a breaker. Like, it's the only thing on the breaker at any given moment. Like, nothing. The mill has popped more fuses than I care to think about, and that's only 6 amp. Yeah. And that's
something inrush current, something
pretty
crappy single phase motor.
Basically that. And
is what it is.
So yeah. But yeah. Oh, we've got a John as well.
Got the whole gang today.
We are internationally renowned now.
Continuing to answer chat now that I'm actually kind of present in chat. So I'm basically back in Pembrokeshire full time. Me being up here is an oddity now. I think
this is the rare.
Aid and a friend of ours, a guy called Jay, are both coming down from here to
tear the engine out.
Yeah, to help me do my engine swap on the 10th through 13th. So if you're available that weekend,
John's working on the hearse. So Mad Scientist Garage has a white Oldsmobile hearse that we took to zip tie, which the video I need to edit still from last year. The plan was to release it in the run-up to duct tape this year, but that whether I can make it is now in question. So that still needs to be edited at some point. And basically we did a massive loop, went into Chicago, kicked around with John for a while, and then he drove down to Tucson while we went to LA and then back to Tucson and then cannonballed back up. And not to ruin something of the surprise, the wheels quite literally fell off our plan because one of the wheels fell off the hearse on the interstate just outside of Tucson when the replacement studs all sheared.
Jesus.
All 5 of them.
How? Because like they shouldn't be taking like any shear. They shouldn't be any shear force on them, right?
So
They're meant to just be in tension, so that you've got surface friction between the wheel and the hub.
John called me. He was like, "Am I losing a tire? Like I feel like something's flapping. Like have I got a flat tire?"
And you can see the wheel.
Well, I couldn't see much because it's a tucked wheel.
Right.
So it sits underneath. So I couldn't see a great deal. It's inside the body. So I moved across, and by the time I moved across, he was already moving off, and the effort of moving off just broke the wheel.
Jesus.
Tucked it up inside the arch, ground the drum into the tarmac, and we came to a halt. And when we looked at the studs on the inside, they were porous. They were horrible.
Bloody hell.
So we looped around, well, got in the rental, looped back into Tucson, picked up some new studs, came all the way back, knocked 3 of them out by the side of the road. We were next to a big gully, so we couldn't get far off. So we were literally the median. That was all we had.
Yeah.
That was it. And it's obviously traffic side wheel. Brilliant. Knocked 3 of them back out, put 3 new ones in out of the 5, limped it 15 miles to RNC Fab, who's a guy I'd met the previous year at Duct Tape, who has a shop there. And message him on Instagram like, hey, we could use a hand.
Yeah.
If we can limp it to you, can we fix it there? He's like, I'll just come pick you up. By which point we'd already left and were getting parts.
Yeah.
So,
oh, cool.
yeah.
I do love like
one of the worst parts failures he's ever had.
I do love the sort of solidarity that you get between
honestly,
between people.
Tim
like
was
that.
a champ. He was just like, yep, cool, I'll come. He was very apologetic. He was like, if I come get you, I might need to ask for some gas money because this particular pickup is thirsty. And I was like, I will just empty my wallet. Like, you can have whatever at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was wild. But yeah, so we've done quite a bit this week. But the main one, in order to fix going all the way back to our terrible hacky roof foam problem, is we've now decided that the 3D printer will solve all of our problems, and so far is actually solving all of the problems.
There's an outstanding problem, which is like, how do we blend the 3D printed shape that we have into the body? Because we can't model the body with anything like that level of precision to like really conform the part to it neatly. But our plan, to the extent that we have one, is we'll make the 3D printed thing.
We'll basically make a buck to replace the foam, and then do the same process over the foam with filler to blend it in and make it work. Yeah, we're gonna getting the buck to the right shape.
Make the part too small, and then build it up to the right shape at the interface with filler.
Which is pretty much what I've been doing.
So you've gone through a few of these. Then.
So that was the first one that we did. We decided, which this will all be in an episode coming up with better visuals.
So, like the windscreen's down there somewhere, and this is the the forehead of the car, effectively.
Side,
the leftmost.
I was going to say passenger side corner, but now we've got an American in here. That's driver's side corner.
No, it's passenger side, and he can deal with it.
So yeah, we decided we were going to lift the buck up so that it would be the same height as the roof at the back. And putting that on with the slope of the windscreen and the way the A-pillars, it just looked awful. So I lowered it and made a slightly larger version of it.
I don't think the difference is going to come up all that well on the video.
Not on this,
if I'm honest,
probably not. But on the car, it looks way better.
Yeah, but no, it's glad to see John seems to agree with my rough idea. And I described this in a take in the episode, which you didn't like because it has some the way I phrased it made us sound like morons. But the basic idea of just
bigger morons.
Granted, was just absolutely just drown the thing, just coat it deep with filler, and then just carve off simply carve off everything that isn't the shape you need.
This was exactly what I said. We just remove all of the parts that aren't the shape that we want to end up with. And
unfortunately, I'm not Michelangelo. So
the problem with that one was because it was so tall so early, you were going to end up with, I reckon, about half an inch.
Yeah, to actually
that would go from the edge to smooth up and go in, and I just didn't like that as conceptually. I having seen it on the Thunderbird.
Yeah, you've got like a sort of aversion to
a pathological
thick servings
aversion.
of,
I'll just hold this up to this one for a second. Yeah, this is how much Bondo some genius put into the rear quarter on the Thunderbird. It is...
And yeah, you just didn't want to sort of channel that particular...
No, I couldn't bring myself to even entertain that. Unfortunately,
in fairness, this would be a fair application of it.
Yes.
Like this is the right way. The
just
right
still
way to
feels
use the
dirty.
wrong amount of Bondo.
Yeah. But dropping it down and sloping it in a little bit more gently has fixed most of the problem, and that is almost perfect now.
Okay, so this actually like follows where the A-pillar meets the top of the car and everything.
So,
and
it's extended forward a bit.
what actually even is the difference between these two?
They're the same height.
Is it just the curvature at the end that you've...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see the marks where I measured it off against the windscreen in Paint Pen.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
And that was literally it. I just went from here to here. I need to trim it back a bit sooner.
Yeah.
Done. So, and then printed that one.
That is one of the really, really nice things. You know, as much as the 3D printed parts, like, they kind of look weird next to metal. And
the most interesting one, that is full extra fast draft mode.
Yeah. It's a bamboo, like you'd expect it to just look fine.
It's really fine, good.
Yeah, but it's not the bamboo printer you want now, is it?
No.
Are you thinking about the new one?
Oh, there's no question it's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, right, okay.
I'm letting first round go through so that if there's any issues in delivery, they sort it for the second one.
But yeah, no, I love that. Like with the metal, if we make a mistake and we try to bend the thing back, or if we try to modify something, or if we try like welding on a new piece and stuff, any change we make can potentially be disruptive if we cock it up.
Yeah.
Like we can get ourselves to a point where we're just like, oh, we've actually just got to start this part over.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. And basically throw a bit in the bin.
Jim from 7 Spot has just joined us as well.
Nice. We're getting all the kit car people now.
That's two from across the pond, because Jim's in Canada.
Yeah.
Mad Scientist is in the US.
Okay.
So yeah, we should probably get some distance onto what was teased, because I've not shown you the picture of the crime of the century as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Oh yeah, I remember you mentioned this in the car earlier.
Yeah. So I happened upon a post describing this vehicle with a picture of it and kind of all of the parts that went into it. And I looked at it and went, I feel so good about our design choices trying to make a multi-vehicle car work.
Okay.
Because that...
Good Lord.
that was the 1975 Any Car 2. Ooh, that's not... Oh. There we go.
Okay, I mean, at least though I can look at that and say it's deliberate.
It is certainly a choice. Yeah. I actually have another one which has all of the parts listed that went into it. So the roof section is on fire. Why won't you? That's deeply unhelpful. Thanks, Reddit.
Right click and open image.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
No, that is opening it in a new tab. Yeah, it just does that.
Oh, cheers, Reddit.
How
All right.
terrible. So
anyway,
so yeah, that is a 1927 Hudson.
Okay.
For the main body of the car. Like the I moved that the wrong way. So the passenger cabin is a 1927 Hudson. Part of the bonnet at the back, this cowl across here, is a 1973 Triumph.
Okay.
The vents down the top.
Oh yeah, replace. Go to old.reddit.com. Leave everything else in the address the same. Just go old.reddit.com, or get rid of swap dub.
I missed. Old.
It might break because it's a media link. I'm not sure if old Reddit implements it.
Yeah,
nope.
it's broken.
I don't know where that went, but
1 second.
Looks like the thing out of The Simpsons. What was that? The Homer.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, so was the basic challenge of that thing? How many vehicles can you put in one vehicle?
I'm not entirely sure.
Right.
If I'm honest. 1 sec. Right. Now I'm not opening it through Reddit. No, I still am. It's just going to be
Yeah, you're just in a light
terrible.
box.
There we go.
At least, okay.
Right. So, the vents on the bonnet are from a 73 Toyota. The nose of the bonnet, I say of the bonnet, I mean of like the top, the first bonnet, is from a 1958 Volvo.
Right.
The bonnet is a 70 Pontiac. The headlights are from a 61 Imperial. There are parts of Mustang, obviously.
Yeah.
The Mustang grille down the bottom is probably the most obvious of it. The inner parts of the grille are 73 Mercedes, stuffed inside of a 1970 Catalina grille.
I hate it.
Yeah, some other parts are Dodge. The marker lights on the fender are from a 69 Cadillac, 54 Chrysler wheels, 69 Toronado wings. Obviously, it's Toronado on it.
I cannot actually bring myself to respect the art here. I just can't do it.
The wheels that are built into the side there, that is from a 73 Plymouth. You would think wheels on the running board would not be from 73, but apparently so. Running boards from a 67 Volkswagen, a 61 Valiant and a 66 Corvette make up the rear quarter, along with a 71 Mach 1 and a 71 Continental. It's
This vehicle is proof that either God is oblivious to our actions on this earth or he is powerless to stop them.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only takeaway from this thing.
Pretty much. I'm just looking through the comments. Yes, it really does look like the thing. Yeah. Yeah, as you say, I hate it so much. Less Mustang Sally and more Mustang
one
Frank.
of one custom hot rod. Oh.
No, do you know what the problem is? This is not one of one. This is the Anycar 2.
Oh, that's a
they
good
made
point.
an Anycar and an Anycar 3 as well.
Well, actually, no. Is this like SEAL Team 6, though, where they call it Team 6 to scare you into thinking 5 more can come after you? Like, there is actually only one of these.
No, because the Anycar 3 is actually a station wagon.
Oh, God. Just needs a dome on it, yeah. Was it at the back, I think? I can't remember. But yeah, that is a proper
A separate dome
thing.
in the back for the kids. Here we go. Here's the Anycar 3.
As visually dynamic as its two predecessors is an amalgamation of parts from some 40 different auto makes and models mated to a body of a 74 Volkswagen station wagon. Amalgamation is a word that I more often use to describe like reprocessed deli meat. And honestly, yes.
Honestly, by the time they got to the Anycar 3, they were actually just drunk because the sides don't match one another.
I can't. Like they've leaned too far into, oh, wouldn't it be wacky? And I just can't respect it. I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's.
I don't want to be negative on stream, but I have to.
And do you know what? The Anycar 1 actually looks even more like the Homer than the Anycar 2. Because it does in fact have a separate bubble in the back made out of a beetle.
Good God. Oh, so it's a marketing piece from a car finance company.
Apparently, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get it from that point of view, but I still hate that it exists, and that's coming from somebody who unwittingly embraced a very similar ethos.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, at least in our case, like we're going for we're using the parts that are convenient, right? We're not kind of deliberately angling for. Wouldn't it be silly?
Yes.
We do kind of we joke on it, yeah.
Yes.
And when we add yet another vehicle to the vehicle. You know, we joke about it and it's fun and everything, but like, yeah, it's not actually
it's done with purpose
goal.
rather than wackiness.
Yeah,
yeah. I think I'm probably gonna have to look into these more and actually do a video because it is so similar to what we've done with like picking things from lots of different cars, but to the nth degree, looks uninsurable. You're not wrong.
Let's see the Bristol IVA centre past that one.
Yes, you're not wrong, Jim. It looks absolutely uninsurable. So that's some quality nightmare fuel for you.
I love how far forward in the rear wheel arch.
Yes,
the axle is.
Yeah, the rear wheel. Yeah, and it's not even sort of consistent with the Beetle above it either. The door, the front door with the Beetle is where they aligned it all off, but the rear seats for the Beetle are completely useless.
Yeah.
It's all gone horribly wrong.
Excuse me.
But, yeah. So one of the other things that we were going to fill some time up with was trying to find something equivalent to what we made, well, what we spent, give or take. So
how much roughly are we in it for? Because I was actually asked the other night, and I think we're at like $2,000 effectively.
Oh, way more than that.
What, even after you knock out all the stuff that we've sold out from the cars that the donor cars?
If you're talking, I'm talking about how much we've spent on parts, not like the break-even balance. The break-even balance is much lower because I sold a lot of stuff from the donor car parts.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the
That's what I was trying to. Yeah.
What in terms of if you wanted to just go out and buy all the parts,
I mean, why would you?
Between $4,000 and $5,000.
Okay.
And a lot of it is steel. A lot of it is steel,
there is a fair
and a lot
bit of
of it
steel,
is very specific parts. Like the PedalBox is the thick end of £400.
Yeah. And the fuel cell was a good few hundred quid as well.
The fuel cell with the pump is another couple of £100. The windscreen, realistically, if you can find one, you'd be doing well to pick one up for under £100 these days.
Yeah.
The steel that's in it probably amounts to the better part of £400 or £500 all told.
Yeah.
I just picked some up very, very cheap that we used for some things. So yeah, the wheels were 400.
Yeah,
but
the wheels are pretty spendy.
But they were very cheap wheels.
Oh yeah, no, for what they are, they're very cheap.
To buy those wheels naturally, you're talking about £1,500
well
or more.
Yeah.
So it's a good $4 or $5,000 project,
Okay.
probably more realistically. Scrapyards are your friends for a lot of things, but when you're after a set of 10-inch wide wheels, you take what you can get. And in our case, that was
a Porsche.
That was 911 wheels that
Yeah.
somebody happened. I think actually more than 4. There was probably 600, but with tires, still such a bargain. So yeah. We've got
so the exercise is what can you
get for about $5,000 that is turnkey good? Because one of the series that we did quite a while ago and started off and kind of fell out of keeping up with editing, so the second episode never made it out yet, and I've started filming a third episode, which is wildly
Can you get
inappropriate
all the way through
for
one
series.
thought before you start
No,
another
absolutely not. Basically, trying to find, if you don't have, say, 7 or 8 years to build a car on your driveway and you want something that is just turnkey fun, what can you get for up to about $5,000? Which is how I ended up with the GTO from Adrian Bourne in the comments, because that was his car when we did it, and it's still one of the most successful videos on the channel.
Love it.
So making more of those is definitely an incentive.
That is a little bit of a done-to-death subject. What fun, practical, daily drivable sports car could I get for $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, pick a number. So what is our spin on it?
Well,
I'm assuming we have one.
The addition of that, I mean, for our episodes, we look more at not just, you could get this hilarious car. Like, you can buy a cheap Rolls Royce, but it will bankrupt
No,
you.
I did say practical, sensible sports car.
So sort of in the episodes we've all gone through, yes, Jim, it's a low cost again. But things like Subarus, stuff like that, that's what we're trying to sort of do some reviews on. But it was more as a curiosity while we're on stream, and we'll take recommendations from the chat as well. What can you feasibly find for a quick search around? Because we're not going to sit and troll every single classified ad here. But what can you find for about $5,000 on Auto Trader?
Now,
that mostly comes up, because you can sort reasonably conveniently on Auto Trader.
Yeah, I'm going to get some.
Give me things that will do 0 to 60
in sub. Yeah. Is that an option to filter on Auto Trader?
So
because I remember being really excited when I found that as a search option on piston heads. A long time ago, and maybe it's just spread from there. So I'm going to catch some flack from this, right? Because this is a drum on which I keep banging. An MGTF.
I mean,
don't get me wrong, it's not super practical. You're not taking the kids to school in it.
No, but this is a fun second car. Doesn't need to be that. If you need it, I've done the all-in-one. I've done the all-in-one fun car daily, and there are always compromises to be made.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And inevitably, you end up not having as much fun.
Unless you get like a Golf R estate. Then there are no compromises. It just does everything
but it's
really,
not
really
$5,000.
well. Okay, no, yes, fair point.
There you go. And there are things that are that kind of level but are very cheap, but it's the ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
One of the ones that's come up, for £5,000, you could have an Audi S5 with the V8 time bomb engine. It's a brave man.
I wouldn't roll that dice. I wouldn't. A mate of mine some years ago, you know the guy as well, Bloss, has a...
he got a cheap V12.
Yes, he did. And in fairness, he got like a pretty good runtime out of it. He got quite a bit of driving out of it.
He gambled and won.
Yeah.
Is
well,
what you're really saying.
He didn't win
there.
forever.
No.
No, he did eventually run out of luck. So he's got a 760. Is it the 60 that's the 12? Yeah.
760.
Yeah, he's got 760
did
like
a
extended
750 V12
wheelbase.
as well,
it
but
might be. It would be either one of them. It's a 50 or a 60.
Yeah, if it's the IL, it'll almost certainly be a 60.
Yeah.
Which is the correct answer of E38.
How much car do you want?
How much car do you want? I want all of the car.
Yeah. All of the engine, all of the wheel space, all of the features, all of the luxury.
Yeah.
And
As John
last I
says,
remembered, all of it worked.
It's the only one. It has to be the only one in existence.
It could also be that Bloss just simply was ignorant of most of the features and didn't know most of them were there to test. So maybe there's that.
Yeah,
like,
as John
haven't
says,
gone
like Tiger Avon is a very good choice.
What's a Tiger Avon?
Just
Is that another sort of low-cost?
Caterham, low cost, yeah.
I say, oh, just another one of those,
Just-
if that
just
disqualifies
another
it. But
low-cost,
like, yeah, there are, yeah.
But yeah, here's an interesting one for you. A Volvo S80 with the 4.4 litre V8 is a 4 to 6 second car apparently.
Yeah, okay. See, when you said S80, I was thinking of probably like a slightly older one, sort of late 90s, early 2000s, with the T6 in it.
Yeah.
There's the 6-cylinder white block.
Is,
I forgot they did a V8.
yeah.
I think was that a white block descended engine? I can't remember if that's from the modular engine family.
It's a 56 plate. I'll just give this person some love on.
That's a big old wedge of car.
It's quite the chunk.
Yeah. The only problem is it's a Volvo, and everyone's just going to think you're a granddad. It doesn't matter how much V8 noise
as you
comes
overtake
out the
them.
exhaust.
Yeah. And if you want to go way more gambly. What about a cheap AMG? You know, this one comes with £1,000 under budget.
So we've got in the comments, we've got, obviously we've got the Tiger Avon, a 300 ZX. Ooh.
300
I do
ZX,
like the 300.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'd want to risk a $5,000 one.
I mean, if you like doing
I don't really know much of what they're worth, but that feels really cheap for that much machinery, because a 300 is like a proper like bubble era car.
As Heather says, there is one for like some people who like doing head gaskets here, 2 litre WRX Impreza. How much gamble do you want? It's a pretty good engine, but when it goes wrong, it goes badly wrong. A friend of mine had one in an X5, and it was a full engine rebuild. Yeah. At the cost of about $5 or $6,000.
Bloss was quoted 10 to fix the. I can't remember if it was a timing chain failed in the 750, but yeah, whatever it is that's gone, it was quoted $10,000
I'd buy it,
to
but
do
I absolutely wouldn't.
Yeah.
Now on the Volvo theme, but a little bit more wafty. The A8 4.2 TDI, so it won't bankrupt you at the pumps.
Granted.
As much. It will still be thirsty.
That will get a princely 30 to the gallon.
Yeah, it will eat tyres, but...
The 8 is a big slab of machinery.
All of
I can't remember
wood.
which...
It's a lot of car.
It looks
for
very
£5,000.
Rover 75
yes.
inside, doesn't it?
But it's, I must
All
admit...
leather and wood veneers.
That is very much outside of the remit of a fun...
Yeah, no, this is absolutely... Yeah, we're well outside of...
As much as it would definitely probably do under 6... Well, it will do under 6. It's here. There's an XK.
Okay. Again, like...
For £5,000.
I just feel like... I mean, obviously, this is less guilty of it than the A8 and the Volvo S80.
It's very boaty still.
Yeah, it just still feels too big. When I think of something that I would have as a fun second car... Now, granted, I'm a masochist. Like, my first car is a Rover SD1, so, you know, discount all of my opinions from there. But, like, when I think of the sort of category that we were describing, I am not thinking of anything that weighs vaguely near this much. Yes. I'd be thinking, like, closer to MX-5s, which I know are really basic. Like, I know it's the standard answer. You know, Miata is always the answer and all
or Z4.
Ooh,
Z4 Coupe.
See, that's that's chuckable.
And it's the 3 litre SI. Like, that's got some...
You know what, one day I'm going to bother looking if the engine in my brother's car ever went into anything else. He's got the N53 direct injected 3 litre 6. that BMW did in like the late 2000s. So he's got an E92 3-litre DI petrol.
Tell you exactly what it went in.
That thing did 60 miles per gallon. It's a petrol. It's a 3-litre petrol with a slush box. He's doing 60 to the gallon on the motorway. Now, for the Americans in the audience, our gallons are bigger than yours, so that's not quite as impressive as it might sound.
So it went in the E63s.
Okay.
The E90s and the F10s. So yeah,
okay.
it was all relatively big stuff, at least from BMW anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's put it in anything
So I know
else.
Morgan used to buy VW, Jesus. Morgan used to buy BMW engines for their cars. It'd be very interesting if they went in any of those.
Doesn't look like it went in anything else in particular.
Because I just think that engine, and I'm sure there's others like it, I'm sure other manufacturers have built similar, like basically pieces of miracle machinery, but like, it's just the perfect engine.
Adrian speaking from having looked, those Z4s aren't very Adrian spec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is thankfully not my problem.
Yes. However, I have found the ultimate boat.
Yeah.
What do you think the ultimate boat is going to be?
I mean, there's a load of different ways it could go, right? It could be
so
some
that folks in the chat have a chance to try and work out what the ultimate under $5,000 going to bankrupt you boat is. This is not a sport. It will move like sports, but it's more like...
Is it like a tow rag V10 or something?
No, it's...
Because that would not be a sports car, and I would want to chuck you in a lake.
This is definitely not a sports car.
Right, okay.
It's a sports-ish brand.
Right.
But it's more of... I can't say that without giving it away. The ultimate boat...
A massive. Oh, I need to do another banger rally.
No, more boaty than the Lexus. Oh, so much more boaty.
Aid, if you do Scum Run again, please let me know. I did Monte Carlo Bust in 2016, and I've been desperate to do another.
I want to do another one. I want to do one of. I didn't make it on either of the others. But yeah, do you have any Lancia? No. This is ultimate Luxo boat. Scrolling through to see if there are any other things.
I find it absolutely wild when I look at Lancia and I see the big. I can't remember the names of them because, like, frankly, I'm a pretty like lightweight car enthusiast. I don't really know much about the history of many different models and everything. But I think of Lancia, and I remember that they did some really nice, plush, executive kind of. Well, I'm not sure if they were called that back then, but things that you would now call like executive saloons. Grand Tourers and stuff like that. And then the Stratos.
Yeah.
And I know why the Stratos existed, right? It wasn't built for the road market. It wasn't built to sell to the salespeople travelling up and down or the mob bosses who had to go to the next city over to assert some dominance or whatever. But, like, I know it was just built to race, but it is still nuts to me that the same company did both of these, like the Stratos and everything else Lancia did.
Yeah.
But I would love one.
So Heather reckons an A4 saloon is
A4's not that big.
Well, this is it. You know,
like when you talk about boaty, I anticipate big and squishy.
You know, the S. I'm thinking more boaty than the S80. Well, I'm going to put everyone out of their misery.
All right.
A W12 Continental.
Right. Do you know the first thing I replied with is it's going to be a big Bentley. And I was like, no, that would be too obvious. We talked, like we mentioned.
I think you'll find that is the ultimate £5,000 boat right there.
That is probably as much boat as you can get for £5,000. Yeah.
That is a lot of mass for £5,000.
Yeah. You buy that and weigh it in, and you'll be up.
Yeah, pretty much. 5 people have regretted this decision. It's done 180,000 miles.
God, it's been pedalled around a bit then.
4.9 to 60, 194 miles. Do you want to do 194 miles an hour for £5,000? I absolutely do. Right up until all 552 of those horses escape violently in every direction.
Couple of mates used to work at Bentley, and one of them was an engine tester. And basically, they were just blowing up Mulsannes left and right. That was their job, was blow up Mulsannes. I'm like, can you imagine a better job than just, I'm being given one of the finest, most prestigious, most loved, at least by its within its niche engines in the world. And my job is to test these things to destruction. And they'll be doing things like starving them of oil. They'll be doing things like running them at the red line continuously for days and days and days and days and days at full power.
Didn't he say he shattered a crank in half?
So one of them, I can't remember what the failure mode was. I think it did split the crank. So one of them, they said, okay, what happens if we just shut off the wastegates?
Yeah.
So we're not...
Nail them close.
Yeah, basically, do not open the wastegates. All of the boost happens. So obviously, you know, the engine usually will spin up. It'll make some exhaust. That'll make some amount of boost. Yeah. And you'll hit your boost target, and then it'll open a diverter valve that allows exhaust to not spool the turbo to control your boost. And they said, what if we just didn't do that? So the engine makes some power, spins the turbo a bit, so it makes more power, so that makes more exhaust gas, so it spins the turbo harder, so it makes more power, so it makes more exhaust gas, so it spins, and it's just a virtuous cycle. Yeah. And yeah, they let it spiral, and I can't remember what they said the dyno numbers were reading, but it was big numbers.
I seem to recall he said it was over 1,000.
I vaguely remember. Yeah, I'm fairly sure I remember it being into 4 figures.
Yeah.
Which, in fairness, like there's Yank engines that you slap a China turbo kit on, and they'll do similar numbers.
Yeah.
But you also can't just like put a 50p on the top of them when they're running.
whilst they're doing it still.
Yeah. So you know we are in slightly different territory here. But yeah, no, that was nuts. I do love the Mulsanne. It's an incredibly archaic engine on the inside, though. Yeah. I'm sure it's like exquisitely made. The balancing, the you know the dimensions, the tolerances, and everything that go into it. I'm sure it's a very precise, modern, machined equivalent. Sorry, not even equivalent. I'm sure it's just like a very old design that has been toleranced to within.
Yes.
I would say an inch of its life, but it's like, you know, a thou or a mil of its life. I don't know what the numbers, what the units are, but a little bit. Very finely honed.
Being a little more serious, there are some quite nice examples.
Yeah.
There's a 3.2 Audi TT.
Okay, you could do worse than a...
Why is that?
Is that a VR, or I can't remember?
Yeah, that's the VR. Yeah, that is...
My only problem with the VR is I just don't like the exhaust note.
Oh, I love it.
No,
when you
I can't. I can't. No.
Yeah, that would be entertaining for 2,300 quid.
250 horsepower is like a good getting you around number of horsepower.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Does TFSI denote it's a turbo engine?
Turbo.
So they've got a 3.2 litre engine.
Oh, sorry. They put TFSI on some things, including that, which weren't turbo from the factory.
Right, okay.
So that should be FSI.
Because I was about to say, if that's a 3.2 litre engine with a turbo making 250, that is shameful.
Yes. No, that was not. They never turboed it from the factory on the VRs. Well, not in a road car anyway, not in something.
Yeah, the Bentley will cost more than £5,000 just for its next MOT and service.
Yes, yeah, as Jim says, just declare bankruptcy now. Yeah. It's just the cheaper way to do it.
Yeah.
Like that is absolutely the correct option.
There was a podcast I watched ages ago, and it was like Alex Roy, the 32-hour 7-minute Cannonball world record holder for a while, Mike Spinelli, some other like Jalopnik aligned folks. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was those two and a handful of others talking about like cheap cars in various different categories, like cheap fours, cheap four-wheel drives, cheap V8s, and cheap muscle cars, and so on. And the quote that I took away from me is, and this is not like a unique revelation, like a lot of people have an idea similar to this in the brain, but yeah, they said in no uncertain terms, there is no such thing as a cheap V12.
No.
You might buy it cheap today, but like
buy
you'll never...
it cheap, but it will punish you.
Yeah.
There was a guy on VinWiki who was telling the story of his professional Ferrari drift car.
Yeah.
With which he's taken all of the wings off, these beautifully finished, super thin aluminium wings, and replaced them with heavier fiberglass ones.
Yeah.
Because he has the molds for those now, so he can just print them out.
He can send one into a barrier and doesn't care.
And it was one of the most knowing things that he said. Some days you take it out, nothing breaks. It doesn't cost you anything other than like tires and fuel and what have you. And it's like you think, I got away with it.
Yeah. But the car knows. The car remembers.
But the car knows, and it will punish you for it next time. And like, yep, But he said it was something. I think he said it was something like. Something north of £1,000 a mile to drive that car in competition.
Oof. Is that just because he tends to go through so many panels?
Through the tyres and everything,
Yeah.
because we're in competition. Like,
Yeah,
that's the thing, you know, it is, he doesn't daily drive it or anything. It's not for the road. It is a race car. And yeah, just driving that around on track is about £1,000. He did the maths 1 year and he said, never again. And then he put a pair of turbos on it. Because obviously
Never again.
That's what it needs. Well, not never again. He wouldn't drive it. He would just never work out what it cost per mile.
Right. No, I'd rather live in ignorance.
He would rather live in ignorance.
No, that's fine.
Than no. But yeah. Yeah, I'm 100% sure his warranty was well and truly void by then. Just because he looked at taking a screw off and be like, nope, done. But yeah, that was quite entertaining. He helped Finnegan build a drift Pinto with a 302 Pinto wagon.
Yeah,
it was the most unruly, drifty thing. But once they built it up and they spent an extra bunch of time fixing the suspension, was comedy.
Nice. So I know we're obviously a very different Pinto here, but I am reminded of a remark someone made in my motorsport course when I was doing when I was studying motorsport at college back home. We had a little Formula Ford car with, I think it had a Kent engine in it, so it had all of about 7 horsepower.
Yeah.
And one of the lads on the course, we were all quite young and like we were all into cars to some degree or other, but obviously being young, we just hadn't had a lot of time to put a lot of knowledge in our heads yet. So we had ideas and thoughts and whatever. But one of the guys piped up, so, well, you know, if we need a bit more horsepower, why don't we put a nice Pinto in there? And without an instant of hesitation, Hugh, who unfortunately cancer got him in the end, not long after I...
Is he the tutor?
One of many. We had a bunch, but Hugh, the tutor in that particular session, without a moment of delay, said, "There's no such thing as a nice Pinto." Just completely deadpan. Like
that man has opinions.
Yeah,
he's not gonna suffer your foolish ideas. John's just said that they interviewed a guy in Norway who put a Meteor tank engine in a 7.
Okay.
The weight of that.
So it's just an engine driving around. Like
it's just an engine with some wheels glued to it. That vehicle would be incredible.
That vehicle, actually, if you broke it down by mass, all of the bits of it that aren't the engine are an anomaly.
Yes.
And statistically do not exist.
I suspect with you in the car, with all of the bits, with the gearbox, with the frame, with the wheels, with the brakes, with the everything else, it is probably at best case 50-50 engine to the rest.
Easily.
I mean, what is a Meteor?
The Meteor was that the...
That was the tank engine. That was the tank engine.
No, I know it's a tank engine.
Yeah.
It's the non-boosted variant of the.
I thought it was 27. That's what was in the
that
SD1.
I'm not sure if there's, because I know that the Merlin and obviously the Meteor was developed into the Griffon, which is 10 litres bigger in the same footprint and weight through very, very careful
Meteor
optimization.
Is a 27-litre V12.
Okay, so the Griffon would have been 37. I can't remember if it was 17 and 27 or 27 and 37.
Yeah, and 835 kilos dry for the engine.
Oof. And then you need a very heavy transmission.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So this is why, because otherwise, you know, the lightest Caterham 7 I can think of off the top of my head.
I think it's like a 460, 480-ish kilo one.
I thought it was 495, but it might be
I think
less.
they got further below 500 than that. But in any case, they're well below 500.
At which point, that would be 60-40 split. But that includes an engine.
Yeah. Yeah, so take that out.
But you would have to have a heavier chassis.
Yeah.
Sorry. You would hope to have a heavier chassis.
Well, you have to, if only because of the extra 3 feet of box section that you need to get past the damn thing.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. That would be spectacular.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
My old man the other day when I was talking about possibly getting a Caterham, I've since talked myself out of it, unfortunately. And for talking myself out of it, I rewarded myself with a new graphics card for my computer, because I'm a massive loser. But for the brief while that I was talking about getting a Caterham, my old man was like, "Oh, we've got a V8 you can put in one." I'm like, "Have we? We've got a spare V8 somewhere?" Because I remembered we had one kicking around our unit for a while, but I thought we'd sold it. I was like, where the fuck have we got a spare V8? He's like, "Oh, in my SD1. And I was like, "I thought you said you'd rather see that engine melted down into tin cans than go in a kit car." He's like, "Well, someone else's kit car, yeah."
Yeah,
but
if it was
if
your
it was my
kit
kit
car,
car,
yeah.
he'd be quite happy for me to have the engine. And they're like, oh god. The problem with that is the only way I could do that is by getting a Caterham that is itself an unfinished project that I have to stab an
Yes.
engine in, and that is not like on top of the fact that I've obviously
At
put
this
myself
point-
out of the market at all.
at this
I'm
point
definitely
now,
not in the
however,
market for another project.
I could probably build you a chassis.
Granted. No.
Just add tankness.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
No,
yeah, I don't know how
yeah.
that must have. When did that one come out? Because I must have missed that one somehow, or I was away, and I have that many subscriptions that if I go away for a week, I normally have about 150 video notifications
Jesus.
for new things.
Man,
And
you
some
got to strip that down. Like, it's not good for your health. It's really, really
well,
not good.
A lot of them aren't things I avidly watch. A lot of them are things.
Oh,
that
you've
I
got
put
loads of
to
stuff
one
you've got as
side.
background
so
noise,
yeah,
don't you? Yeah.
it's not. Well, it's not so much that. It's things I want to keep track of for something else. So it'll be like I'm going to watch all of these on a catch up at a later date.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sometimes a bit brutal. Like if we go to the States for 2 weeks, come back, here's 400 videos that you haven't watched. And like, great, I will start at the homepage and just ignore those notifications.
Nope.
And whatever comes up, I will naturally find, and that is good enough.
Yeah.
And it does mean that sometimes you get like a nice bunch of episodes that you can watch through. But yeah, it's pretty much exactly what Aid says. And there's a few things. Oh yeah, 2 years ago, I think that would have been just before I found the 7-spot group. So yeah, 2 years ago would have been that's why I haven't seen it pop up. I'm still mining back through that.
Yeah. I need to interview Charlie Broomfield at some point.
So they've had him on something Practical Performance Car. I've recently done a couple of videos with him.
He was
with the
Practical
SD1.
Performance Car,
well,
but yeah.
yes. Yeah, but recently they've put a few fresh videos up.
Awesome.
With it.
I need to dig those out then.
Yeah. They're actually they've got a pretty good channel going on. It's one of those that I can see when we eventually get this thing running, being another one that might end up being.
Well, it's very practical. You can put
that?
you can put an entire loaf of bread.
Yeah,
and
we have storage
yeah.
in it.
You can put like a dozen eggs in the side. I mean, in the UK, we can still afford them.
In the UK, because they're only a couple of quid.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, it's a very, very practical vehicle. You can
Yeah.
you can have one passenger. You can take your kids to school in 4 trips, which is perfect because you want to do lots of miles in a wonderful, plush, comfortable car like this.
Yeah, I definitely do something about the seats.
Yeah.
They need. We bought those because they were the cheapest seats available, and they were also the smallest available, and we knew we were a little bit tight on space. I think we could probably go about another inch wider, and it would be fine. Certainly in the legs.
I will say, for me at least, those seats are absolutely the perfect size. They are just exactly on my hips and my and around my chest and everything. They're just absolutely perfect for me.
Because we didn't have the seats in for quite a while, I didn't get in it for quite a while, and I got in it recently, and that was the point at which I realised I need to start going to the gym again, because when I slipped in and I could feel the air pressure behind me sort of blowing out through the I was like, this is a problem. And then as I lifted out, there was a noticeable suction.
Yeah.
And I was like, either I have to drill a hole, or I really need to go back to the gym to solve this problem.
We have picked up an Amos, who you know from Duct Tape Drags.
Nice to see you. Yeah,
I've still not made it to.
Yes,
because I'm a big melt.
Yeah, well, you meant to zip tie.
I did. Yeah, I went zip tie a whole bunch of years, but I just haven't been back to anything since the pandemic.
Yeah, pretty much since it changed to duct tape. Yeah, it is a very good event. I do enjoy that out there, and it's still weird being recognised. Yeah. It's so far away.
As the Brit at the event, like the tall, bald Brit, like you're just quite memorable by default.
Yes, basically.
And then there's me, just apple juice.
Yes.
I don't know if you're in the chat, mate.
No, I don't know.
But I still haven't forgiven you for that.
I haven't seen Tom in.
No.
But yeah.
Sorry, can I just rewind quite a lot?
Nice to have you here, Amos.
If I can rewind quite a long way.
Yes.
I don't know if we've still got. I don't know if Aid's still in chat, but if you are still in the chat, Aid, other Aid, not White Knight, Aid Duggan. Workshop Aid. You asked how Wheatley is doing.
Yes.
I do not have happy news about Wheatley. So
Wheatley is doing especially worse, but I will let you.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw you under the bus. you are throwing yourself
I
firmly
deserve
under
to be under this bus. Yeah. So, Aid is well aware of the fire and the engine problems that Wheatley had because he was. Well, I'm not sure if he had the pressure washer or if he just built the thing, but the place that we worked was with. Bloody hell! Sorry, I can't get through a sentence. It was while I worked with Aid at the power equipment company that it had the engine fire, and I'd had a whole bunch of like ABC powder sprayed into the engine bay by a unhelpful McDonald's employee. And we had to do it with a pressure washer to try and clean it all out, and ABC powder converts into, there's one of the many ingredients in it, reacts with water and forms some kind of acid. I can't remember the details, frankly it doesn't matter, like the engine was shot.
But I am looking it up out of
That's
curiosity.
fine. So I pulled the engine and weighed it in sometime later, because it was done. Like the engine was already done even before this happened. Like the fire happened because the rings were gone and the engine had turned into an oil pump. With an inlet of inside itself, an outlet of outside itself, so it's pumping oil onto the exhaust manifold. So I pulled the engine. I got a 1.8 or a 2 litre. I can't remember which I got. Was it a KR or an ABF?
I think it's a 2. I could be wrong. But
In either case, I got one of the like Mark 2 or 3 16-valve GTI engines to pop in it. I got some bike carbs. I got an ECU. This is all back in like 2016. I bought all this stuff, so it hadn't really been off the road all that long. I trailered it out to where I lived in Southampton at the time when I was working over there in the video games industry. I trailered it all over, bought an engine, bought an exhaust manifold, bought an intake manifold to convert like the 20-valve turbos, throttle plate and everything that I had from some other bits that I bought. Like I had, in theory, all of the pieces to build either a nasty, like Razzie, naturally aspirated 4-banger. I also had a turbo and some necessary bits to build a boosted engine. I had the ECU to manage all of it and everything. And I just kind of never did. While I was at Multiplay, they were famous in our community for not paying very well. So I just didn't really have quite how I managed to acquire the parts in the first place is beyond me, because I had no money by the time I was paying my rent at the time. But like I managed to get the bits.
all the parts, that's why you had no money.
But like any time I ran into any small problem, it just completely killed my momentum, because I'd be like, oh shit, now I need to order. I can't remember. There was like some particular example. I need like a trigger wheel to run the ignition timing or something like that. I can't remember. Like I'm talking 10 years or so ago. And any time I'd run into like a little tiny thing like that, it just completely killed me. And I just never made any progress on it. And it sat in a garage until I moved here to Parkside headquarters, which that was in 2016. That was the summer of 16. You don't have to question it, like it was. So like 2016, I moved up here. And I can't remember who moved it. I think a mate of mine stuck it on his beaver tail and drove it up.
Yeah, it was Matt.
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
And unfortunately, since then, it's been sat outside. The hood has given up. The driver's window, some part of the window mechanism has collapsed, and the driver's window has fallen down into the door.
And we don't know when that happened.
Yeah,
All
we only
that
discovered this
down.
like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now, the good news is, I have worked out the shell is still watertight.
Yes.
The bad news is, I know it's watertight because there's 6 inches of water in it.
Yes. What
so,
little
yeah,
I tried to
Wheatley
get
is-
out of there just went back in again when it rained again.
And actually, I can't remember what happened first. Did the engine fire happen first, or did the crash on my way back from LAN happen first? I think I crashed it and then just kept driving it around with the rear corner stove in.
The dent.
Yeah.
Dent. You told me the dent was before you did the engine, because you took it off the road.
That
for the
sounds
engine.
right. Yeah. Yes, that was it. No, of course I took the I took the engine out. Of course
Yeah, it's very hard to drive.
Definitely wasn't driving it like
and
that.
we know it's not a Flintstone car because it's still holding the swimming pool.
Yeah. So obviously I'd crashed Wheatley some years before. I went to a LAN party. I didn't sleep for most of the event, and then I particularly bad decision. I specifically didn't sleep on the last night of the event, thinking instead it was much more important and much funnier to build an entire castle out of empty pizza boxes.
Was that around Dignitas?
It was around Dignitas. That was me and the FTL lot back then. So there was a professional gaming team, had like a little what would you call it? Like a little box area where they all had their PCs and all their shit set up. And at the entrance of it, we just walled it off like, I don't know, 5-ish foot high with pizza boxes all the way across the front of their booth. This was a lot of pizza boxes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that meant I didn't sleep all night because I was building the world's biggest pizza box. So it wasn't just me, to be fair, it was like a dozen other people.
It was a concerted effort.
It was a big team effort. It was one of my favourite parts of that LAN, but it did leave me extremely tired for the drive home. And then I just stacked mistake on top of mistake on top of mistake. My phone battery was flat, so I couldn't play any music in the car. I put the heater on high because I was feeling chilly. So like I was driving while extremely tired. In a warm car with no music and with the windows up, so I had very little stimulus, and I was wearing my nice soft Mark 1 Gulf heater blanket. It was a very good heater in the Mark 1, really good heater, and I literally just fell asleep on the motorway, and drifted off to the left, felt the rumble strips, and kind of snapped awake and got back in my lane. And it happened again, and I overcorrected coming back into the motorway, so I fell off the left into the grass. Cranked it hard back across all 3 lanes, and as I'm correcting to try and not be driving right across all 3 lanes into the central reservation and the Armco that's on it, the back let go, and basically the rear end of the car snapped around, and the rear corner caught the Armco, and I basically came to a stop across 2 lanes at a 45-degree angle, looking out my driver's window. With the transmission in park, because like at some point while I'm slowing down, my PC has come flying through the middle between the seats and punched the gear selector, which had no working lockout, into park while I was coming down from 70 mile an hour. So God only knows what the transmission would have been like if I'd ever tried drive. Oh, actually, no, it survived because I kept on driving it, so obviously the transmission was fine.
As I'd say, it's basically you couldn't have chosen worse options for the journey.
No, I did.
Warm, no stimuli, late at night with no sleep.
Every mistake I could have made. So yeah, Wheatley still has the crash damage. The rear corner is still stove in, still has no engine, is getting rustier and rustier by the day. The interior's shot, the roof's shot.
The interior isn't terrible, but it's definitely not good. The roof is holding together, but has a couple of holes in it.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have to put a new roof on it, but it's not fundamentally unusable as a roof.
Would I have to put a new roof on it?
Well, you wouldn't have to. You know, if you wanted a working roof, then you just throw some duct tape on it. It'd be fine. It's not as rusty as you think it is.
No, it's certainly not as rusty as you'd expect it to be for being sat in the elements with a broken... Because
I've
it's a soft top, it's a vinyl
I've had
roof.
the cover off where I've tried to put it back on. It hasn't done much. It just blows back round again because of where it is. It gets caught really badly and just lifts off the car.
So ignore the wonky colours. Right, I'm just about to pop a picture in stream chat. So I've just popped a picture in stream chat. Aid's going to pop up in a second. I do still intend... And I acknowledge that the chances of me actually delivering on this are pretty slim, right? But as far as I'm concerned, I crashed the car, and it should have been written off on that day. Then I kept driving it anyway, even when it really ought to have been dead. It's very yellow there, which is wrong, and it's very orange there, and that's wrong. But whatever, ignore the colour, right?
That monitor is absolutely not colour graded at all, and this one also isn't, but that one's worse.
Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, any mile that drove after I crashed it on my way home from LAN is a bonus, right? You know when someone says they're like terminal with cancer and like they make it through and they're like, everything from here on out is days I should not have had.
Yeah.
So how stupid I am with them, it's not my concern. So this thing is the approximate goal. Just cut the roof off. Roofs are too expensive. I don't really want one. Get rid of it. It's extra weight. I don't care.
You get a car cover for when it needs to stay somewhere.
Exactly. Or I'll just put it in dry storage. I'll park it up at the barn that we rent for the T-Bird. So yeah, cut the roof off, pull the interior out, go for like a more vinyl-y, sort of weather-resistant-y interior, or just strip it, right? Maybe I just go all the way back to metal on the interior, and I go with, like, again, in the sort of principle of, this car should by all rights be dead. Like, if I drive it at all, it's a win, even if it is a disgusting Frankenstein monster.
I've got a couple for John's question. But
and then in the front, because it currently doesn't have an engine, and I know I've still got the 16 valve here, because I don't think that's ever made it back to Pembrokeshire since I left.
Yep.
But the 16 valve engine, because VW just never kind of got with the times, it's still an iron block.
Yep.
And the VR6 is still an iron block.
Correct.
And the 2-litre turbos are still iron blocks. And I hate all of that, because that is a very light car.
Yeah.
That thing with the roof and with the old iron engine and everything else was 950 odd kilos. fully trimmed up.
Yeah, about that.
Wet.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, this is a small, light car that I'm going to make lighter by losing the roof. I'm going to make it lighter by losing a bunch of interior. And I'm not going to put an iron block engine in it.
Yes, you are.
I've got a spare Rover K series, which
All
weighs
aluminium.
slightly more than a wet fart. So the plan is put the K series in the in Wheatley, which would be very, very fun, especially if I do the very silly thing of sending said K series to DVA Power and saying, make it spicy.
Please give me more.
Yeah, I want a 9,000, like, because I wouldn't want this to be a turbo car.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want lag.
Yeah.
Because I think turbo cars are wonderful if you want to like pull out on a motorway and put your foot down and then go hee as you do a 1,000,000,000 mile an hour past a lorry, right? And you don't mind waiting a second for the boost to come in and all the rest. But I want something that I put my foot down and then I realise, oh shit, I'm like 3 gears too high and I've got no power at all because I've got a 320-degree cam. Bugger.
I mean, if you have a
And then you
well
have to
set
drop
up
it.
turbo, if you have a well-matched turbo, you
Yeah.
won't have that lag.
Well, if you have you've always got the trade. If you want to make more power, you have to accept more lag.
Supercharger.
Then you've got to have the engine capable of holding more power than you can do it, but
yeah. So John says, "What's the most expensive mistake you've made repairing or maintaining a car?" I
Yeah.
suppose putting out a fire with what turned into acid is pretty bad.
no, I think my most expensive mistake would probably be something on the SD1, but I'd have to think about it.
Mine is probably my daily was an A6 2.7 V6 TDI, which was really good. Got fantastic mileage. I peaked at 82 to the gallon coming back from Bristol to Reading,
Yeah.
which is a fairly flat road along the M4 in fairness.
It's a good roll,
Doing
that one.
65, 70 mile an hour, give or take, all the way. And it peaked at 82 to the gallon, which was unbelievably good for what is an enormous
It was a big old
barge.
lump of a machine, yeah.
But part of that good economy came from the fact that it was chipped
Yeah.
and it was running more than the 170 brake that it left the factory with. And that's fine when you know it. Nobody told me that it had been chipped. I kind of had an inkling in the back of my head,
Yeah, it
but
felt
I
like it had a
never
bit more
thought
pep
to look into it. Turns out that engine is a derivative of the 2.5 litre, which only has a single timing chain, and when you put extra boost into it, they stretch.
Why
And
a timing chain would stretch on
And
the boost, I just don't know.
I did nothing about that.
I can't
and
work out how that happens.
I was driving it. Well, I mean, they stretch naturally.
No, I get that, but like I can't see why a turbo would affect it. It's not like the timing chain is transmitting
It's still,
anything that's
it's
affected
still
by horsepower.
turning more. It still has more power going through it, I guess. But
No, because the only
it
load
was-
is dealing with
still,
is like
it's a well-known problem with that engine, unfortunately, and I didn't do anything about it because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And I was driving to Gatwick, and pistons met valves
Nice.
on the way to Gatwick, so that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
And my current A6. I was driving that, and there was a clonk as you were pulling away in first, and I knew it was a problem, and I tried trying to work out what things it could be, and eventually I settled at, well, the clutch must just be worn, and it's at the end of its travel. It couldn't be anything else. It's definitely in the transmission, but that's the only thing I can think of that would make enough sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. The flywheel and the plate that connects the flywheel to the clutch on the other end basically there's a big bell in the bell housing, like a trumpet rather, that connects onto the front of it because one of the axles goes through the bell housing. That had come loose and had about 10 degrees of shift. So when you put it into reverse or forward, there would be this big shift between the two where one would turn, catch it with the other, and then clunk round, which was pretty brutal. And as it turned out, that shattered all of the bearings in the diff. You can't buy the diff bearings separately. Nobody sells them as a kit. There is no documentation for what they are, so the only way to find out what they are is to disassemble the entire gearbox, the entire diff, look for the parts, hope that you can get a part number or something to fit, and then put it all back together, which is extremely expensive. Or buy a new gearbox, because TPS and VW and Audi and all that don't sell the diff or any other part. They sell the gearbox as a whole. That's it. And that's 10 grand. and I didn't do that. We got a second-hand engine for the previous A6, and we got a second-hand gearbox for this one, and had them fit. And that was both very, very expensive, but it was traded off against better the devil you know, because a similar car at the time had gone up in price. Like my daily A6 at the moment, I bought for £9,000 6 years ago. And a similar aged one, last time I looked last year when the gearbox went, was £11,000 for the cheapest one that was available. And it is big enough for the work that I do. I fit in it. It's comfortable. So there's nothing much else that I want that's similar to it.
I think this is that's like I'm kind of drifting off the original topic here, but hey, conversations. I think there's a lot to be said for this idea of like I have enough car. I don't need something newer, I don't need something bigger, I don't need something faster. Now, granted, the A6 is pretty big. There's not really, like, unless you go into, like SUVs and vans and the like, there isn't really much that is bigger than it.
The next step up in the same class would actually be the VW Passat, which has a taller back, so it has bigger boot. It's slightly squarer, and Jess already has one of them, so where's the fun in that?
Fair enough.
And we know it does good at the rink.
Yeah. Well, I don't. I wasn't there because I'm useless.
We know it'll do a 10.5 in the wet.
Jesus. That's not bad, to be fair. I mean, Sabine couldn't do that in a van. Actually, no, she did 10.5. Probably not.
Yeah,
much
I was going to
less,
say she did 10.5. I think 10.7 was the best she did in the van. 10.8, something like that.
Yeah. But no, I think being able to kind of acknowledge, I have sufficient car. Is there wine coming from something there a second ago?
Fan just spun up on.
Oh right, okay.
Probably that camera or possibly that camera.
So that differential one though, that wasn't really a mistake. Because the question was, what's the most expensive mistake?
No, it was a mistake because I ignored the problem for much longer than I should have.
But if you hadn't ignored it, what would have happened? Like, what would it really have looked like to prevent it from failing? Would it have just been that you have to just buy another gearbox anyway because it's the only way to...
It would have been flywheel. It would have been new flywheel, new clutch.
Right. Okay. Oh no. Okay. Fair enough.
It certainly would have been new flywheel.
Fast enough to make an American a bit car sick.
Yeah, that was the mate between it.
The Passat.
Yes, to be fair, John was also in the middle seat, so he was absolutely in the worst possible position, very deliberately, not just so that he would be ill. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to give him a good view out the front as we were driving around.
Is that a preference question, or like what's in one of the cars that we're talking about, automatic or manual?
I mean, the Passat's an automatic.
The Passat was an automatic. The 10.5 in the Passat, it's a 2-litre TDI 19 plate Passat. It's the 170 or 150 brake. It is the 170 brake.
Yeah.
And it's an automatic. And it was nice. It was quite pleasant to just cruise around in. It was nothing wrong. It was a very uneventful lap, all told. Other than John
kind of what you'd expect in a
pinballing from side to side in the back.
It's kind of what you expect in a fairly well put together, competent modern car, though, isn't it? You don't really expect any drama.
So John's is, do you prefer auto or manual? Honestly, it depends, because now my daily is an automatic, the 7-speed DSG, because when I changed what I was doing on the daily basis for work, I found myself driving in London a lot more, and having a manual for that was hell. So when the opportunity came to swap into something that was an automatic, it was just an unbelievable quality of life improvement for driving around. I'd had an automatic before driving around in town for while I was working.
But you're not really going to be massively enthused by it if you're not in city driving.
Yeah, well, I wasn't driving for work. I was commuting to and from work, so it wasn't as big of a problem. But when I was working in London, I drove 2,500 miles within the M25 in 5 weeks. From northwest London to Vauxhall and back again, sometimes...
Sorry, Vauxhall?
Yeah, Vauxhall.
How do you pronounce the car company?
Vauxhall. What, Vauxhall?
Okay, let's not get into that.
It's not Vauxhall.
That's not Vauxhall, it's Vauxhall.
Vauxhall.
Whatever.
Vauxhall.
We could go hours on this.
Bearing in mind, I am from Sunderland, where we had a brewery that was VAUX called Vaux.
Right.
So Vauxhall.
Oh, okay. So you've been polluted.
I was poisoned. Yeah.
Say Vox.
Say Vox. Vox.
Say Hole.
Hole.
Say Vauxhall.
Cool whip.
Vox.
So yeah, the Golf is a manual. and I don't think I would want to do... It depends on the age of the car, because at some point it would just feel wrong. You could absolutely put like a 2-litre TFSI and an automatic box with enough work into a Mark II Golf.
Yeah.
But it would feel weird having flappy paddles in a Mark II Golf.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really like such a disjointing thing.
So I'll get back to this one. I have
your Rover's automatic.
Yes, but
and Wheatley was automatic.
Wheatley was. To be fair, that wasn't my choice. The SG1 being automatic was a choice. Wheatley was bought for me, and I was told, "Here's a Golf. You owe me £1,500 now." And I'm like, "Oh, excellent. Cheers, Mum. First car. Congratulations." So I'll get back to the gearbox one, but your most expensive mistake.
Yes.
I did work it out. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit. None of my mistakes have been very expensive in money because I do all my own work.
I know what this is. Yeah.
So most of my mistakes are quite financially cheap but expensive in time and like the impact they have on me, and especially the impact they have on like the timelines of the projects. So the SD1 years and years ago had a slightly crappy auxiliary belt on the water pump. This is when we went to retro rides. Yes. No, this is post lockdown. This is like 20.
Really?
I had the car back, which was post lockdown. We went to retro rides in like 22 in it, and we gave Paul.
Yeah.
Paul a lift. I gave Paul a lift back.
Yes.
Right. And back then, my drive belt was a bit iffy. I hadn't really noticed. I'd noticed that it slipped from time to time, so I just tightened up the tensioner and tightened up the tensioner and tightened up the tensioner.
Cranked on it.
Who would have thought that if you over tighten the belt and you side load the bearings in all of the pulleys in all the parts that are on the belt, you break bearings. What a novel idea. So I blew up the water pump on my SD1, which is a problem because they run obtainium. Don't. Not a word. So yeah, I shot the bearings in the water pump, and I was on. I think it was when I was actually moving out of here. So which would actually put it summer 22, because that's when Vix came in to replace me, right?
Yes.
So summer 22, I'm driving home. I've got the last of all my stuff in the car. I've got like because I remember I've got the picture of it with like my air conditioning unit and my desk and my chair and all the other guff in the back. And I'm just coming past like Bristol-y sort of area, and I see my alternator light come on, and all of a sudden my engine's a lot quieter. Now I hadn't really noticed it building because it was building so slowly. I was hearing, and I hadn't really identified it, but I was hearing the bearings in the water pump suffering. I was hearing them physically like grind away and rattle away, and I was like, I'm sure I don't remember this engine being this loud when I got this car, and sure enough it wasn't, because the bearings were dying. And obviously, when the bearings actually went, the pulley flopped around enough that the belt ate itself, that the engine was no longer turning the water pump.
Yeah.
The water pump shut up.
Yeah.
Obviously my alternator stopped as well, that's mostly incidental, but like, I had no water pump, and I'm like, ooh, this is very quiet. I limped it up a hill, because of course that's the typical. This happened with no lay-by, no shoulder or anything. The only exit I found was up a hill to a car park. So I was like, if I stop, there's a very good chance I may not be able to restart the car and carry on, because I don't know what the problem is. I'm not going to risk it here.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it to a car park if I find one.
Somewhere that is remotely safe.
Yeah. And I stuck it in the car park in front of a pub. And so that water pump, the pump itself is like 300 quid if you're lucky enough to find one for sale anyway. So that's relatively expensive just for over-tightening a belt. But it was then off the road for the water pump. I have extremely terrible executive function, and if I need to buy or replace a part for my car, I don't do it. I completely suck. Like, I'm just useless at this sort of thing. I touched on it earlier with the Golf, right, with the 16 valve swap.
Yeah.
So for months and months and months, the car is parked up in front of my unit, or in my unit, and I'm like, well, you know, it's off the road because I got to do the water pump, so I might as well have a pop at like fixing the audio system. There's a bunch of like wiring, and there's like downstream wireless off stuff.
It's project creep.
Yeah,
While I'm
no,
here,
absolutely. Yeah.
While I'm here, the Thunderbird suffered from that.
I did eventually get another water pump. I got like a whole water pump viscous coupling fan assembly from eBay, slapped it on. I can't remember if like I didn't put the correct gasket in, or if I missed a bit of silicon or whatever when I was putting it together.
Yeah.
But like it had a leak. So I pop it off, and I try another one that in the interim period, I'd found a cheap one on eBay from someone who was breaking one of these things. I put that on, and that leaked from a different place. It turns out the housing in that one was actually cracked, so that's not my fault. And I'd gotten through to the end of the day, and I'd done like 4 water pump installs on this thing, and it's kind of it's not super fiddly, but it's quite a long engine in admittedly quite a long engine bay. But I've taken a lot of engine bay out of it by putting this massive, properly obnoxiously huge radiator in. And I've eaten a lot of the dead space in front of my engine.
The access to the front of the engine is impeded.
Yeah, because the bonnet opens from the front. Yeah.
So because it goes forward, you'd think, oh, well, it's easy to get to the radiator, the front end of the engine. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. It's about 10 minutes to pull the bonnet off. I just never bother doing that. So water pump is off, and I've just spent like 4 days. So it's not 4 days. So I spent the day swapping the water pumps on and off and on and off and on and off, and waiting for the silicon to dry and testing it and trying to figure out where the leaks are coming from and getting in there with mirrors and the camera on my phone and all this stuff. And I'm just angry, I'm tired, and I'm exhausted, and I just want to put the fucking car back in the unit for the night so I can go home. So I hop in the car, and I go to start the engine, and it goes ka-kunk, and the engine like locks up because I hadn't put the timing belt back on. The 2600's an interference engine.
Yep.
I try turning the engine round by hand, slowly, because I'm not an idiot. Well, I am an idiot, but I'm not like that much of an idiot.
You're not deliberately an idiot.
And I find like I can run it back so far and I can run it forward so far, but it won't make a full revolution.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, something's broke. Like maybe I've bent a valve and it's down in the chamber or something. So I took the head off, which thankfully is quite an easy job on this thing. I've actually done a cylinder head swap in a lunch break. So I took the head off, and I noticed that one of the valves, I just completely snapped one of my valves, and where the piston had shoved it back up into the roof, it had taken big bites out of the seat.
Yeah.
And one of my other valves was seized. So piston had a big bite in it. The valve seat was done. The head was unhappy. Thankfully, this was a mostly pretty rubbish head. It was one that I pulled. Honestly, that engine looked like it had been dug out of the swamps of Dagobah. It was disgusting. But I'd had the head resurfaced just enough that it was usable as a spare, so it was on for other reasons. But yeah, so at this point now, because I over-tightened my water pump, my auxiliary belt, instead of replacing it with a grippy one, I blew up a water pump. Not a big deal. I can get new bearings put in. That's fine.
Subsequently,
took the car off the road.
And you were
destroyed a valve, wrote off a bad but serviceable cylinder head,
a functional engine, effectively.
Took a bite out of a forged, out of a Marl forged piston ring, stalled the project by multiple years.
Yes.
And necessitated like head swap, bunch of bottom end work to replace the piston, which I still haven't done. But the engine swap that's coming up in a couple of weeks will fix that. So in terms of time, that water pump belt has cost the project years.
At least 2.
Because all of the other shit that I've gotten into doing, all of the soundproofing that I did, like I ripped the entire interior out and fully soundproofed with like a, depending how you count it, I could seriously argue that it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I could seriously argue it's like a 5-layer soundproofing system.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy duty.
It's serious. Like it's better than you'll find in a modern vehicle.
Yeah.
Granted, it's a crutch because like I don't know how to design an efficient soundproofing system. So like I've gone for like just way better materials and way more of them than OEMs ever will. So like it's a really, really heavy overhaul, and like that's had knock-on effects on the interior. Like I've had to modify parts of the interior to make everything fit back together again with all of this extra. Like the body shell of the car is effectively shrunk in every perimeter by like a centimetre.
We did the episode trying to put the interior back together last...
And bits just, we're not happy.
Early September, later. Well, we did it early August.
Yeah.
I think the episode came out early September.
Yeah.
Which was unfortunate, because that was will it make it to Italy? We already knew that it wouldn't, because that was a week beforehand that it needed to get to Italy.
I think it could have. I was just done.
Yeah,
I'd done 2 really intense weeks thrashing to try and get that thing back together.
We had the dashboard in and out 3 times in a single day on that Sunday, just trying to push through to get it. We had an unbelievably productive Saturday.
Yeah.
Got so much stuff done, little loose ends tied up, and they're like, cool, now we just have to put it all back together again. And we put it in, the dashboard went in, and nothing else lined up anywhere on any other
Which
part
wasn't
of the
a huge
entire
surprise. This is something that
dashboard.
I was afraid of, having effectively
Yeah.
changed the dimensions of the car with all the soundproofing and everything.
But even then,
yeah.
we looked at all of the pieces where the soundproofing was, and the soundproofing
Didn't
wasn't
seem to
intrinsically
be.
in the way of
Yeah.
any of it. There wasn't an obvious, oh, well, I've put an inch of soundproofing here, which is why this doesn't fit by an inch or, half an inch
Yeah.
because of the...
It was all much
slack.
weirder than that. But yeah, so
Yeah.
the only reason I started that was because I was waiting a while to build up the executive function to order a water pump. So while I was waiting for that, I ordered a new head unit, Blaupunkt BT46. I highly recommend it. It's just obnoxiously expensive. It's really, really nice. So I went to put the new head unit in, and I found the wiring behind it was really, really janky. So I pulled some of that out and rejigged it, and I found the wiring that was behind that was really janky.
Yeah.
So I
It
pulled
was
that
the
back
most
and
classic project creep.
oh
you
yeah,
could
no, like
possibly imagine.
multiple people, like
Yeah.
one after another had bodged the wiring in this. I'm convinced, by the way, old cars don't have bad electronics, and I do extend this to Rovers. Right? This isn't me defending Rover, this is me defending old cars, and it just happens to include Rovers. I don't think they have bad electrics. I think anything went wrong at any point in its 50-year life.
And
the
somebody
Rover's
just
close to
made it
40.
work.
Yeah, and someone just like bodged stuff.
Yeah.
And
mean-
over time, like some bodges are fine. Like
I'll counter that with Lucas has a lot to answer for.
they made a vacuum cleaner once. It's the only thing they ever made that didn't suck.
Yes. But there is very much... I mean, I've found it in the Golf. There was bits... I mean, we fixed all of that when we did the conversion because so
Yeah.
much had to move around. But even so, there are so many things that I found where, well, that doesn't look right. My dad's A4 that came through me onto another friend.
Yeah.
I was telling him for probably the better part of 18 months. Speakers whining. It's whining. It's whining. You should take it back to wherever you got this installed and get them to fix it. It's still whining. Like there is a noticeable high pitch, but he couldn't hear it because his ears are not as young as mine.
Yeah.
So he ignored the problem. And then as soon as Ben got it, Ben went, oh yeah, I found out what the problem was. Instead of there being a trigger wire going into the amp, there was unfiltered 12-volt switched live as a trigger.
Huh.
Just pumping through the amp. As soon as you took that out, switch it for the right wire, problem solved.
Huh.
It was just some amateur ass
Yeah.
who threw the wrong wire in as a trigger and went, oh, well, switched live, that's the same as a trigger.
I mean, arguably it is, but
Arguably it
you'd
is,
still
but-
want it to be like a controlled. I mean, maybe
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe the trigger's meant to be 5 volts or whatever.
yeah.
But whatever.
But yes, John's saying, have you ever driven a bike-engined car? Because
No.
you were going to put bike carbs on
I was
your
gonna
car-engined
put
car.
Yes,
But that's as close as you've got, and I've
No.
never driven. I've never been on a motorbike because I am too tall and gangly for anything of that nature.
I would like to try a bike engine car at one point. I did see a message in the chat about it, so therefore it has a sequential. And this is actually where I'm going to tie back to
Yeah.
the gearbox question.
Yes.
I love the planetary, the torque converter and planetary gear set of a slush box. I don't like how most slush boxes behave. I don't like the way that the gear selection, you can call them algorithms, like whether it's implemented hydraulically or electronically, depending what gearbox we're talking about. But I don't like how they choose what gears they're in, and I don't like that you have very little control over them.
Yeah.
And I especially don't like if you've got a car that has, in the case of like Dad's BM, and I'd imagine your Audi's got something similar, you can knock it into sport, and then you've got like a little sequential mode, or you might have paddles or whatever. I don't like how when you're using those, all of them feel like they're connected to the gearbox via a piece of string that's running around the world twice. Like they're just all slow.
The DSG is fine,
Well, the DSG, again, not a planetary slush box.
but that's not mine. Then mine's a DSG.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, I was talking about the control, the sequential
but,
control.
No, but the sequential control is much the same.
No, it's a DSG. I would expect it to be fast. I'm talking
Yes.
about the control. I'm talking about this, like, if you have this sequential mode available on a slush box, it's dog shit. Like, you just
Yes.
don't. It's useless.
The one on, so I've had two proper slush box automatics.
Yeah.
730, a 1989 735.
Yeah.
And a 96 540. And the 735 one was the best slush box I ever drove.
Yeah,
Despite being so old,
yeah.
it was fantastic. It shifted at the right times.
Yeah.
It held right. It worked so nice. It was better than the one in the 540.
Yeah. I
Albeit
will
the
actually.
540 was a much more modern unit, but that being
Yeah.
said, they were
Excuse me.
both... Well, the 7 Series was extremely slow when you tried to tell it to go into a gear, but it didn't have the sequential option. It didn't have a plus-minus, like, shift me up down. It was just first, second drive. The 5 Series at least was first, second, third drive.
Yeah.
And again, didn't have a sequential type option.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you say, like the DSG in my A6 is fine.
Yeah, which you'd expect because like it's already got the next gear selected.
Yes.
So when you ask it to shift up, all it's doing is swapping 2 clutches. But like the part that bugs me, and I'm sure there's like an actual engineering reason for this, because in my opinion, it's such a glaring problem that if it was easy to solve, they would have, right? Is in a planetary gearbox, you know how like one of the big nice things about the DSG is you have the next gear pre-selected, and you can just swap your clutches over. Yeah, it's very, very quick to change gear. You can, like, the act of changing gear in a planetary gearbox is opening and closing clutches. Yes. Right, you're just coupling different parts of the box to other different parts. You're changing the path that torque takes through the mechanism. And there's some bits there around like, okay, well, like, as you lock and unlock different brake bands, parts of it are going to have to speed up and slow down to match. Because obviously in the DSG, you've got 2 entirely separate gearboxes that you're using. There's nothing that has to go from one to the other.
I've seen videos of guys swapping out the valve boxes, the what's it called? Valve bodies in automatics in order to change the characteristics of how they shift for things. But I don't think that still doesn't really apply for a selector gear type box.
It actually could with some
work.
It
could, but I don't think it does because of the type of gear.
Because you can get like full manual valve bodies, which don't actually use the hydraulic pressure generated by the spinning transmission coming from the converter to drive any of the shift behavior. It literally is you just tell it what gear you want it to be in, and it will lock and unlock the relevant bands accordingly.
It's just saying about the Yamaha R1. Yeah. Oh, sorry, the Hayabusa in a smart roadster.
Yeah.
Which revs to 16 grand.
Bike engines, man.
Yep. And it's as John says, you know, peak hour power will be below that, but it's more than the 7,000 RPM of the old engine by a significant margin. And Jim's like, sorry, I can't hear you. My ears are bleeding.
Yeah. Is the booster to get to that sort of speed? I can't remember. I'm sure one of the popular bike engines uses desmodronic valves, so you're not closing the valve with a spring, you're closing it with another cam lobe. So you actually drive the valve both ways, but because there's no spring to act against, the loads through the camshaft and everything are a lot lower, so you can effectively, like... I don't know exactly how it enables this. I'm sure if I sat down and thought about it long enough or read a Wikipedia article, I could figure it out. But, like, somehow or other, driving both sides of the valve operation via a cam rather than using a spring to return it just allows you to get, like, absolutely ridiculous RPM.
Apparently the Hayabusa is springs. Or at least you can buy, £65 valve springs.
What were Desmo valves in then? I know. I'm pretty sure BMW had them in something.
Desmodronic valves.
Doesn't really matter. Like, just really, really strong valve springs, I suppose.
Curiosity has been piqued. Common history, comparison, example.
But no, bike engines are nuts. But yeah, sorry, so the actual... As Aid said, I like an automatic for driving around in town. Like, if I'm stuck in traffic, I really don't want to be messing around with the clutch. However, my ideal gearbox would be a planetary automatic with a manual valve body.
Ducati.
Yes.
They had a V4 990cc that they used in GP3 in the World Superbikes.
Right, that tracks, because, I had something in my head of,
in a selection of year spans, 1992, like 94, 96, and scattered through to 2011, had a Desmodronic V4 990C engine.
Neat.
And apparently there was one in 2007 as well, in a different, the 800cc era. Because the 800cc era came in, they're one of the most powerful engines because they reduced the capacity, so less power. But yeah, that was what did it, apparently. But also, Mercedes used them in the W196 300 SLR.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
would not have guessed that. I would never, ever have guessed that.
Yeah, and that's, 1955.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
That was a gorgeous car. Absolutely gorgeous.
That's quite some time ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that was in the
to be fair, it's not like it's an advanced concept that you need, 1990s technology to implement. It's just two cams. But no, that I think is quite cool. But yeah, there's booster engines and nuts. But yeah, gearboxes, I like being in control of the selection of ratios, but I dislike everything else about manuals. I dislike having to mess around with the clutch.
Yeah.
I dislike just all of it. Just really all of it. And mostly it's because I'm a lazy piece of shit, like if I'm completely honest. I love the 3-speed slush-o-matic in the SD1.
Jason said simplify and add boosiness.
Are they actually reliable? Like do booster engines blow up after about 5,000 miles?
Until you put a turbo on them and boost
probably.
them to the moon, then they probably become a little bit less reliable. But
I suppose they are put in production bikes that have warranties and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, I think of anything that spins to 16,000 RPM, and I start thinking about
That's
the
not
era.
stock.
Oh, okay,
stock
fair
limit
enough.
isn't. I think who's I don't know.
It's got to be like 12-ish, 13-ish. That's
10
not,
and a
that's
half
not an
apparently is
unusual.
the booster limit.
Really?
Jim said,
Oh, wow.
yeah, but I guess that's stock, and the Yamaha R1 is 13.
Right.
Well, hard limit at 14.
Yeah. But yeah, like when I think of
Says
our
in his smart, the Hayabusa is not even remotely reliable
Right,
from what
okay.
he's heard. Which I guess you take it out of its natural habitat, because a lot of the problem I've heard with bike engines in things, and some of this is from Superfast Matt.
yeah.
When you put a bike engine into a car, it no longer leans.
Okay.
So as it's going fast, you lean into
Yeah.
it, the sump is still underneath in the line of gravity, so the oil is pushed down and the sump stays. So the sump, as standard, is not set up to deal with slosh.
Yeah.
Because it would never have to deal with it.
Okay. I mean, so in
And
theory, you
that's-
could fix it with like a dry sump system or
Yes,
like a.
and that's
with
basically
a,
what he had. He killed his Honda S600
Yeah.
when he put a 600cc Honda engine in, and went spanking it round and went around a really long, I think, right-hander, and it was a good
all
like
of the oil.
it was like a
used all of the oil
15
that
or
was in the
20 second
Yeah.
prolonged turn,
Yeah.
and all of the oil just went, and it just sucked air and just
Yeah.
the whole thing went.
Yeah.
And that was and that's the biggest problem. If you're going to put one into a car,
Yeah.
one of the main
have to
things
fix
you
the
should
lubrication,
consider
yeah.
doing is putting a dry sump in.
I guess it's also going to be some.
Or one of the I forgot what it's called. Accumulator valves.
AccuSump
An
is one of the
AccuSump,
brand
yes,
names
that's it,
of them,
yeah.
but yeah, that was the
Yes.
that was the other thing I was going to say besides a dry sump. I think maybe there's also going to be something like in engineering there's this idea that force follows resistance. So if you're acting against the weight of a whole car as opposed to a bike,
Excuse me.
you get. I can imagine the engine experiencing, like if the engine, maybe like you bang the clutch in, right? You're selecting gears, and
Yeah.
like maybe it's got a crash box. I don't know if it is a crash box on that, but say for the sake of argument,
Yeah.
you do that on a bike. Your engine is spinning. It is a flywheel in some sense. You lock the gears together,
Yeah.
and it's going to jolt the driveline. But the bike and rider is a relatively light system, so it will accelerate more. Like more of that jolt will actually go into the bike, rather than like in a car. A lot of it will be kind of. I'm mangling some terminology here, but it'll like reflect back in some
Jim
way.
just saying it has something about a swivel pickup. Is that as in the swivel pickup moves with the forces side to side, so it
That'd be quite
always
neat.
stays in the oil? Like that's quite neat. It sounds more complicated than just having a baffle. But by the same token, if it works, it works. Like yes, John's just said it's a swivel
The swivel's
pickup
just
that
on a
moves
bearing
across.
that's
very neat. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that as an idea, but yeah, that
The
makes
rider's more likely to type it
that
from
makes
the
perfect
engine.
sense. Yeah, swivel
Yeah.
pickup is that's an interesting one. But having a Quaife reverser, so it's six reverse gears from the bike. Yes, obviously, that's precisely what you need.
Love it.
Yeah.
Was it DAF that had the
Amazing.
Variomatic drive? I can't remember much DAF stuff. The only DAF thing that I remember off the top of my head is that monstrous turbo twin that they went racing at on the Dakar Rally.
Yeah.
And particularly, there's an absolutely wonderful aerial shot of it fucking barreling across the desert, like at just unbelievable speed. Like it's on soft sand. And it's rooster tailing out behind it as it's kicking so much of it up, right? So you can imagine the amount of energy that's eating.
Yeah.
Just like consuming out
And
of the vehicle.
still moving.
And it is well north of 100 and something miles. I think it was like 120, 130 or something it was doing there. On sand.
What was it? Sorry, the
DAF Turbo Twin.
DAF Turbo.
I can't remember if it's one word or two. I think Turbo Twin's one word. And this
using the
tracking shot
Dakar
from a
Rally.
helicopter has it just walking away from like a 205 T16. I think that was that the Group B Peugeot.
Yes.
of the time.
Yes, I think so.
And and I think actually that's how someone in the comments worked out the speed they were doing, because the 205 was geared for some, like the fastest they could make it go was some number of mile an hour.
6 turbos, 2 engines, 11 tons, the most insane rally vehicle. Hopefully we can get away with this playing the video.
That shot is just absolutely wonderful. That's not a 205. I can't remember what was in the video then. But yeah, it closes the gap. It does take a little bit of time to do it. But you see, the minute it starts undulating even a little bit, the car just starts falling back.
Yeah.
As the truck is just eating all of the unevenness in the terrain and just carrying on. Just absolutely insane.
I'm trying to work out what the vehicle is now.
But yeah, that's the only daft thing I know. I don't even know that very well.
405 apparently? Oh, alongside Peugeot 405.
Oh, was it? Okay.
405.
Oh no, they raced alongside them. That's not necessarily what was
okay.
in the video. Allegedly 150 mile an hour flat out.
Even on bumpy sand dunes, because why not?
Oh, of course it's StavTech. Oh, Hila boasted about it because it's got monstrous turbos on it.
Sure.
Stav's brilliant. I miss him. It's a shame he went quiet. Very, very opinionated, but I loved him.
Yes. So, thank you everybody for joining us.
Oh, is it wrapping up time already?
Well, we're approaching 2 hours. So, you know, if we start wrapping up now, we might be done by 2.5.
Yeah. I might be able to get back to land tonight rather than tomorrow morning.
Shocking. But yeah, so thank you everybody for sticking around. We've had really peaks of 14 or 15 people pretty much all the way through.
For a little while.
Well, all the way through. I'm just sort of, I'm now curiously looking at the analytics.
I don't think people
14.
care, if I'm totally honest. Not that that's ever stopped us.
Solidly above 15 people the entire time, and 19 was the highest a few different times. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Hopefully we'll get some more of these out as well through the rest of the year. I'm going to try and get some guest people to come in as well on a few of these. We've got a few people relatively local who'd like to come down and be on for the chat. So potentially when Chris can't make it, we'll try and fit in somebody else into the mix and do this same kind of stuff and hear from them as well. Maybe if John's around as well, he can pop down and come in for a bit. And yeah, we'll hear about some other people's things too, as well as our lack of progress. We can live through other people's progress vicariously.
Got a couple of questions in chat.
Oh yeah.
John's asking if you'll be streaming from Kitfest.
So I kind of thought about it vaguely, but really that comes down to whether or not Jess, my tech producer, is available in 2 weekends' time. 5th, 6th of April.
It's the weekend before Flan Party would have been.
No, I'm supposed to be playing board games with Q in South.
Oh, fair.
Just ask if they can move it to Flan Party weekend. Now that Flan Party's cancelled, they can...
Yeah, just move it back a week.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be there filming stuff, so I'll have the camera gear with me and like do some stuff from there.
I will say streaming from an event is a nightmare. Like it's really hard to do.
We tested a lot of our gear last year, and we've got it pretty well down from the tech side. We've got a whole separate setup to this that we can throw into a car and run from now, which makes life an awful lot easier rather than having to de-rig a bunch of stuff in here. Other than the cameras, like the cameras are fairly easy to move. But yeah, that's the goal. We'll do some more stuff. But yeah, hopefully Kitfest next year we can try and organise and like do a nice stand and hopefully have a car there, you know, just little things.
It'll totally be running next year. We can drive it there, right?
Yeah, we'll drive it there. Actually, I probably wouldn't drive it. I would trailer it because I'll have the daily with all the gear in anyway.
Yeah,
so.
true.
That would be a fool's errand to try and put all the gear into that.
Well, no, it's got the big box hitches on the back. Just put a tow bar on it and stick all your gear in a trailer.
Yeah, we might have a problem with that. I haven't explained that one to you.
Have we got time?
2.25 inch box hitch.
Yeah.
You can only use them on commercial registered vehicles. So it'd be
okay.
What if we didn't mile an hour?
What if we didn't have a trailer and we just made a big box?
You can only
unit
have. You can. If it's not a trailer, that's basically it. I don't know what it counts as.
Because at that point, it's not.
Because it's not centre mounted, so then it's not technically a trailer hitch because you can't put a trailer on it. You have something else which goes on, which is a flat thing.
It's just part of the car.
And there's a question mark around that I have not yet entertained. If only I knew somebody at the DVLA.
If only. If only I worked in vehicles at the DVLA. I'll just go into VSS and just like create a listing for the car, skip the IVA and everything.
So once again, thank you everybody. Don't forget, if you want to buy merch like this, or well, not like that, because
you can't buy this one anymore. This is a relic
anymore. That is a relic. All these mugs.
But not these mugs.
But not. You can buy the DT ones.
Just not from us.
Oh yeah, just not from us. Which we should probably do some sort of swap with them to do things, because I'm sure Nick would look after us. But yeah. We'll see you later. We'll see you next time. Do keep looking at the channel. I have got more videos edited, and we will see you anon.